A white-haired man stops and watches forward where someone is raising a kneeling crown. Before him is the king of humans, begging for forgiveness for all the evil he has done, handing over his throne in exchange for his life. Figure with pointed ears. Just keep looking. And as everyone expected, the war ended with the victory of the vampires. Extends his hand, but in a flash, a single blow, the king's head falls to the ground. From now on, humans will live like cattle under the rule of vampires. All around begin to scream in despair, but he simply gives the order to kill all those who are there. All that just to make sure that the glory of the era of vampires last forever. On the absolutely all are dead. Two men approach a small group near the edge of the cliff, asking if they are the last ones left. The one on the left murmurs that everything ends too fast when there are so few humans left. The one on the right tells them not to fear death. Pain is only temporary. But a mother hugging her children in the background speaks, saying that the days of vampiric oppression counted. In your dreams, God had revealed to him that a human was being sent to save humanity. Men look at each other confused, wondering what that strange woman is talking about. One of them tells him not to worry, because he will not live to see tomorrow anyway. That moment she advances to the first man in the blonde, warns that yellow is coming, confronts the vampire head on and confronts him with a clean vertical cut. But the vampire tears and reappears behind him. When the mirror turns, the vampire has already marked him with a crimson slash. Blonde jumps in to help, but it is also split in half. The last there trembles, cries and tries to attack, but his sword is nailed in directly in its orbit. The vampire appears from behind, effortlessly trapping the blade with one hand, breaking it and destroying it as well. Another body falls to the ground. The vampire advances towards the mother and her children, saying that death will be swift, raises his arm, ready to strike. Just as he is about to strike the blow, someone shouts his Yukul name. Is a friend urging him to look to the side. From among the smoke a strange monster advances. They ask who he is and if he belongs to that army, but Yukul says he does not have the smell of a living human. Smells like an angel. The stranger forwards his foot and jumps directly towards him. Vampires laugh at their boldness for attacking, but the next second his hand is already right in front of the face of the first vampire, grabs it, whips it against the ground and explodes it against the ground. The vampire Tez almost completely stunned and confused about what the hell is really that bastard. The man had just covered almost 300 m in a single jump, and there his friend less to dust on the floor. Yukul prepares as launched forward, pointing a slash at his opponent's leg. Seeing the perfect opening, he stabs his sword directly in the center of the mirror. The leaf stays there, and Yukul demands to know why he did not dodge. Is sure that the blow hit directly in the heart, convinced that man should be dead at any second. But the boy simply extends his arm, grabs Yukul by the head and lifts it up. Panicking vampire demands to know how he continues to move with a sword stuck in the heart. Without answering this, sinks his fist directly into the vampire's chest, ting him in the act in front of everyone. The blonde woman nearby, by emotion she calls for forgiveness, but he notes that only the children have survived. Tells her to just keep moving forward, that at 3 miles away is the sacred land where they will find protection. The still girl celebrates and declares that it should be the hero sent by the god. The mirror seems confused by this and begins to take off his helmet with nails on his chin and all his head baked. Asks if he really thinks he looks like something to an angel. Children are frozen in silence. Then when his nose comes off, bends down to pick her up, and the children scream even louder, calling it spoke before fleeing in terror. The so-called just laughs, saying that this type of reaction was to be expected. A rumor is circulating in this world, the rumor of an angel, half vampire and half human, who cannot die. The scene changes some time before. A group of people dressed in plague doctor's robes find a man lying in the middle of an arena. One of them comments on how incredible it is, had died while still standing in combat position. Another question if this is the so-called Gunter, and the answer comes with certainty. Yes, 228 battles in the arena, 228 victories, and not a single defeat. Knew he was the greatest gladiator of that time, but even the strongest human could never defeat vampires. The stocky plague doctor questions whether he is sensible, entrust his future to a stranger like him. The man known as Aryan responds that he will assume risk and believe in this fighter. Question about chest status, and the answer is that the decomposition has already learned, but can still be used. And so what is this? Plague doctor, fierce and sharp, takes a step forward, approaches the body, saying that the times demand reinforcement, and that is why he will become immortal. The scene changes again. The boy standing on a mountain of innumerable corpses. Someone praises his work, saying that he has once again survived. Suddenly, open his eyes and see all the plague doctors cheering in front of him, screaming that his eyes are open and asking if he can. Understanding his words, confused, requires know what happened, for he is sure that someone was dead. Explains that he has been reborn to save humanity. Of course he has no idea what they mean, and the bald doctor orders them to bring in a match. When held, Gunter looks and curses what kind of nightmare this is. The boy has no arms and no legs, nothing. Horrified, asks what kind of toy he has become. Ariel calmly tells him that he is not the angel, which is the last hope of mankind. The bald man then explains that his brain now holds a life support device, something they have only managed to create once. As long as this mechanism continues to function, it cannot die, even if someone's whole body is destroyed. Tells him not to worry, that the arms and legs are there, made with special muscular engineering. The arms are already like those of a bodybuilder, and yet the fibers produce dozens of times more strength than normal. Being humanity's greatest gladiator and now, equipped with these, the upgraded ones believe he can take on a vampire, directly Gunter. However, he is no longer so upset and asks if they really brought him back, only to fight vampires. Arian tells him to understand that he is the perfect candidate, and who knows that he was also killed by vampires, so for the sake of mankind, must fight for all. Gunter responds that the whole thing of saving humanity, of course it sounds good and all, but it does not, yet it has a condition, so tell him to come over and hear the bald guy. Everything was exciting, saying that whatever Gunter asks for will be considered. Gunter traps the man with his stumps against his, demanding to be released from this curse. Immediately, Arian calls Reinhard, but Gunter warns became the gladiator, stronger because he learned to kill without hesitation. For him, both humans and vampires were selfish and narrow-minded people, and be resurrected just to fight again. In this state, it only shows how they are. The only thing you value above all else is not the other people, but his own life. So if you do not want to see this man's head fly right now, better give him arms and legs and send him to. Someone a little surprised looks at the clock. Gunter asks what he is waiting for. Do you want the man's head to explode? She replies that she does not have much time left. Gunter confused the recording, and she explains that she has about 4 seconds left. When you ask, what does that mean? Something's in his brain and apparently dies. The bald man is released and someone comments that, as expected, Gunter is out of control. Gunter opens his eyes again and finds himself face to face with the bald guy once again, who asks him why he did something so cruel. Still with the jaw dull, Gunter demands to know what happened, and the bald man explains that just like any animal or machine requires energy to move, the source of energy for your body is the essence vital of a human, and appears to come from Reiner, who is standing nearby. Oh no, maybe Reiner be a man. I hope it is not just a woman without breasts. Gunter asks what they are talking about, and Reiner, who I will continue to call a woman until proven otherwise, says that is exactly what he thinks. To stay alive, must remain connected through that device and absorb its vital essence. Once the connection is severed, can only move for a maximum of 2 hours. Desperate, Gunter demands know what kind of nightmare this is, but the bald guy calmly says that his reaction is as expected, insists that Gunter must believe, because everyone's life, along with the survival of mankind, depends on this research. Call human batteries to the people who receive these devices. The hundreds who volunteered, only Arian survived. It is extremely difficult to create, so Arian could forever be the only human battery. Gunter ordered him to explain more, and he says it is exactly that. Gunter can't fight just for his own life, also has to protect her from it, otherwise will only last a couple of hours before it ends up as a wall ornament. The other option, obviously, is to accept the support of humanity and fight against vampires. In the end, however, it is your decision. Gunter is there, trying to assimilate everything you have just heard, when suddenly someone calls Reinhardt. Another plague doctor enters, running, saying they have an urgent problem. Bald man begins to answer that they are in the midst of something important when they let go of the vampires just before a sword hit from behind. His body falls to the ground, and then enters a strange vampire, rat-like, saying that Lord Benson ordered him to take all humans and beautiful women with you. The other stranger on the right agrees, saying that it is exactly that, while everyone else is stunned, wondering how vampires did not even enter the base. One of the doctors asks Reiner what they are going to do. Gunter is already screaming, telling them to connect their arms and legs if they have some love for their own lives. Bald man doubts the order, and the others show themselves, saying they will die if they get too close to him. Gunter replies that if they do not, will lose their general once he is dead. Men argue that there are only 4 people, that they do not need a general in the face of this Aryan. Step forward, saying that he will buy them time and orders that connect the rest of the organs. The bald man tries to stop her by telling her not to do it, and even Gunter yells at her to stand still, but she is already face to face with the vampires at demand. Know what kind of value. Believes she has to face it alone. She should know that they are superior in all aspects before they can finish their arrogance. The first one flies straight into the face of one of them, trapped in the air by the vampire. She mocks by saying that they talk too much. He crushes. I take it with my hand and it moves like a blur. To one side she shoots another almost perfect one, but he dodges it again. Bends down, throws another one, he dodges again, and then shortens the distance to give it a brutal, direct kick to the stomach, slamming her against the wall and grabbing her by the neck. Creepy one stares at her and comments how beautiful his face is. I agree. Says Lord Benson will like it very much. Another, insisting that he also wants a part, as the other one took the last 2. While arguing, someone murmurs, gorgeous playing, and then bam, before the vampire can even turn, a devastating kick smashes his head against the wall. Now that I notice it, looks a bit like Cyborg from the Young Aryan Titans. Celebrates, but is instantly caught in the head, about to explode like a balloon. Gunter warns him to be careful, that now her life depends on her broken and badly. Trecha, she insists that someone had to act. He looks at her for a moment and then says she is fine. Then the vampires get up again, their bodies by recomposing themselves piece by piece. Gunter is surprised that the creature did not disappear even after his head was smashed. Aryan explains that to kill a vampire, his heart must be destroyed. There is no other way. Another charge directly against them. Gunter pulls her aside as the vampire launches himself, pointing a punch at his grandfather. Gunter just stands still, smiling with mockery, staring at him. The vampire does not understand, and his head explodes again as it falls. Another other one launches straight towards Arian, but Gunter advances like a torpedo and you rammed it with your head, slamming it against the wall as well. Reinhardt can hardly believe it. This is the first time the boy has used this body, and yet it moves so naturally. Not only does it seem to fight well, it seems to have born with these modifications, and he already realizes that although his strength is insane, his speed is not abnormal. The only way to move fast is by using the leg muscles to propel oneself. Throw your body forward, since its reflections themselves do not move as fast. Coincidentally, in just 1 second, Arian has already adapted. Note immediately, who is actually enjoying the Gunter fight, grabs the head of the vampire and says he has already practiced enough with that body. The vampire, however, demands to know that it is him. Did humans create any kind of Gunter? Laughs, saying that those words are a little hard, that barely just born. Extends his hand to finish him off, but the vampire begs him to wait, offering a peace treaty, stating that he has something valuable. Gunter tells him to speak up, and the vampire reveals that Lord Benson is nearby. They are their creations, and as soon as they die, Benson will feel his smile and appear right there. Even for him it would be difficult to fight that guy. Gunter asks why this Benson would be bothered to avenge like the desperate vampire. Screams that it is because Benson loves, who is the only one in the whole world who loves them all. And also, if Gunter simply gives that girl, Vangel will let all the other Gunter go watch to one side, and says it can leave him, take the bald guy, but that the girl is off limit. The vampire refuses, insisting that he cannot give up the bald Gunter. Responds that unfortunately, negotiations are over. Hands the vampire's corpse with his hand. Offer rejected. The same is true with the other disappearing while clamoring for Benson. The protagonist wants to know who this is, Benson, and why everyone reveres him so much. Arian explains he is a high-ranking vampire in the vampire world, are classified by the purity of their blood. High-ranking vampires are the pure ones, naturally born. Those of low rank are descendants of variants and mixed lineages. Looking at the Gunter illustration, notes that black-haired vampires all appear to be of low rank. She confirms it, saying that the high-ranking have white hair and are weak in sunlight. The problem is that they can use their own blood for forging countless weapons in battle, which makes them extremely powerful. While the two talk, Reinhardt was asking if they did not hear what the vampire just said. Wenzel will be there in at most an hour. Gunter asks if the bald guy really believes that. He replies that it does not matter. At least they should be prepared. 1 hour is not enough to be ready. Fight someone interrupts, saying that first and foremost, need a clear answer. Is he going to fight for humanity or not? Gunter stops to think, and then says that, as mentioned before, the most important thing is his own life, and it seems that the only way to survive right now is to cooperate. Arian thanks him by calling it a noble decision, while he already demands to be connected before it is too late. She nods, but he says he has a little gift for himself first. It is then that he receives the armor. His head looks tiny compared to her, as that of a bodybuilder with a huge body. Coincidentally, the bald man says she looks wonderful and fantastic, asking what Gunter thinks. Each piece was chosen after countless tests to ensure that he had perfect smile of an angel, as someone who has returned from the dead. Gunter, however, he says that all this feels old-fashioned, as something from the old days. Someone explains that the armor is refined with mithril. In addition, each part was adjusted individually to their body so that their reflexes can be easily replaced even while wearing it. This design was necessary because against vampires moving at extreme speeds will receive many blows and need to minimize the damage it suffers. She points the meter at her wrist. That is literally your battery indicator, as in a Samsung phone. Shows how long it can continue to move, as it is already connected through his head. The time is set at 2 hours. Just then the roof begins to rumble violently. All feel the impacts from above, one after another, and Gunter realizes that something huge is coming. Warns them by saying it is something gigantic. Bald man argues that these vampires died just 40 minutes ago. Gunter only orders them to cut connection and ask what the Aryan escape plan is. Explains that they are in catacombs under their hometown, the chosen place specifically to create it, and that front door is the only entrance and the only exit. Gunter replies with fury that I should have mentioned that before, with no other option for dealing with the rumbles above. Helmet is placed on and warns you not to show it, no matter what happens now. Behind the helmet, his expression hardens. While looking at the entrance from the threshold between inflation, there are 3 bald figures, strangers, Asians waving with a casual hey. Everyone is confused to see these 3 approaching. Clearly, this is much scarier than any normal person. Now that I notice it, our protagonist really has an air of guts. This time, the strange vampires just stand there smiling, saying that he is the one who killed his Gunter family. Wants to know if they were those ugly low-ranking vampires, if he was the one who killed them all, and if it really took them down so quickly. The one in the middle laughs, saying that it is impressive for a human. The others, yet they were souls abandoned by their parent, and that is why they had such horrible smiles, and thinks it is very sad that the boy did not feel compassion for the miserable way Gunter died. In the meantime, ask the bald man if this guy Wenzel is crazy. At that moment, the bald man asks if this is Wenzel. The face collect. The peculiar little heads confirm it, and the bald guy says they are on hand, as both sides have killed many comrades, so it proposes that it would be fair that each side just go on your way. The heads appear strangely calm, admitting it is not such a bad idea, especially especially with the dawn approaching. Pity that they have sworn allegiance to Lord Julius by one vote, which declares that every human being in this world must be mounted. Sorry, bald, negotiations are impossible, Gunter. Then ask what you plan to do. Wenzel with that three-headed body alone will not last long. Heads start laughing, mocking him by calling him funny, and more begin to. His words move from mouth to mouth while explain that reason itself, by which low-ranking vampires exist, is to protect high-ranking individuals. The sunlight did not exist, they would be truly immortal. And there is Wenzel right in the middle of all those heads, using them as protection against the sun. Gunter asks if that thing is really a vampire. Someone realizes the obvious. All heads are connected by blood, and now the name Face Collector makes perfect sense, yet that there must be some core that manages all these connections. But before I can finish his thinking, heads are thrown forward to bite. The impact hits like a heart attack. The smoke rises and of course, Gunter saves her. Cannot lose the only person, keeps him alive, orders you not to stand there and to run to safety. She warns him to be careful. If you do not discover where the core is, the fight will be stopped. He simply tells her not to worry, by him, and to concentrate in staying alive. Overcomes the advance towards another fallen body, ready to bite with their heads, but Gunter continues, hitting him with a brutal punch that leaves him stunned before you can even process what happened. Gunter finishes it off with another hit, throwing it into the air. Warns him that if he does not find the core, will simply tear it all apart until it is displayed. Reinhard is actually stunned, is coming face to face with a tall vampire. Range is severed. Wenzel is of his strength, saying it is amazing. I had never heard of such a powerful place among humans. Wonder if Gunter is really human. Answers that it does not matter, and another direct punch against the mass of heads. But suddenly, one of the heads bites his armor from the inside, stating that in the end he has been caught. The bite force of these jaws equal to that of his own fist, which means that once they begin to squeeze there is no escape. Gunter tries to move his other arm to give another blow, but is also bitten and caught. In seconds, both arms and legs are immobilized. Wenzel, saying he has a little gift for Gunter, is about to experience the true hell that exists within you. The next chapter opens in a landfill, abandoned, where a child is crying. More than obvious, that child longs for his mother and cries for help. But the days went by and no one listened. That desperate cry. Eventually the child's screams came to an end. From that moment on, the child gave up finding the warmth of a family or someone who could come to save him, and in its place proclaimed only in finding a way to survive. Heads biting Gunter's arms and armor, and he admits that the bite force is incredibly strong. 2 or 3 heads could handle them, but there were hundreds, all clinging to their bodies with their reflections. Immobilized persons have no idea how to free themselves. Imagine there must be something further down, but he can't even guess how many layers of heads are stacked underneath it, and if it fails, at least it needs a backup plan. Then from the depth, someone states that these dirty vampires will not pass. A voice screams that will defeat them all. Gunter is confused, but the mass of heads that were once human, he says, who have not been defeated and who will never surrender. That moment a hand appears on him, and a strange gloomy demon emerges, stating that this man was once a great hero, Albert Lauren, who saved hundreds of people, but now he is also part of the Gunter collection. Points out that these heads are sitting on a pillar of hair, which means they must be quite valuable. Benson confirms this by saying that these are the heads of heroes who were sacrificed, trying to save others. Chose the most beautiful ones to exhibit. His noble spirit of sacrifice will continue to exist until the day when mankind perishes. Then ask if Gunter does not find the hell he created wonderful. Gunter replies that it is an impressive place. That fit Bensel's head in there will be a problem. Bensel reassures him, praising the strength and determination he has shown, as larger than those of any. I guess I saw it, but Gunter interrupts it, saying that he does not understand it, that he is simply very ugly, and his head would look horrible in that collection. Bewildered, Bensel asks if he really is that ugly. Gunter tells you to take a look. When his helmet comes off, Bensel begins to sweat in a daze. I just understood what you are seeing, admits, who is the ugliest human face he has ever seen, uglier than even the most grotesque vampires. Gunter looks down with discouragement, saying he never imagined living enough to be called. I thought it was a good start. Now that Wenzel has seen his face, maybe I can let him go. Wenzel, still confused, asks if Gunter really thinks he will make it out alive. Gunter replies that this included. That should have been impossible, but now that you have seen a flash of hope, must fight. And with that he sinks his teeth into the first head, ripping her off his arm. Bence observes him, then bursts out laughing, asking if Gunter really thinks he can bite his way out. Must understand, this is nowhere near enough. No one has ever escaped from this place, but Gunter continues to bite by declaring that he is not just anyone. What is Gunter? And then whips another head with a brutal headbutt. Whatever happens here, and swears it will happen. Bites another one, destroying it. The devil keeps watching. The more and more heads close in on him. A huge hornet's nest appears from the outside. Plague doctors assume it has already been eaten or devoured, wondering what they should do next. Bald man insists that he warned them that choosing Gunter was a mistake. Tells Aryan that this was the worst possible outcome. Send a wild toy to a place like this. Should never have put the hopes of humanity in appearance. Idiot. But Aryan points out by telling them to look at multiple heads are fallen, and in the middle of it all of a sudden, Gunter bursts in with a devastating punch. Just then the bald man screams that he always trusted Gunter. On Tuesday, the protagonist crashes to the ground, instantly dodging to one side, while another column of head collapses. Then the bald man asks, where are the boy's legs? I just saw him move with his hands alone. Aaron spoke and says the plan has chained. There is no way they can win this fight. Melee. That is why they will handle it different, with a commanded area on its back. Plan is to run until dawn. But just as a head jumps in to bite, he jumps out. While he moves with his arms, trying to escape with her on his back. Aryan reveals that actually brought parts extra of your body with you. I had not mentioned it before, because he never accepted his proposal, but some of these pieces had been modified to serve as Gunter weapons. Sinimba thinks there is not enough time to equip any. Doing so could cost them every. First they need to create some distance. Pushes forward again. Now I am not sure if we should call it a leap, since he is using his hands. That is a paradox. For a moment I will check it out with GPT chat and good chat. GPT says that if you push yourself with the hands, that is technically a lift, using the muscles of the upper body, not a jump. A jump only occurs when you use your legs. Unfortunately, during one of these uprisings, the demon catches a glimpse of Aryan's face and smiles, saying she is too beautiful right away. Begins to run towards her in despair, shouting that it should be part of the Gunter collection. Hidden nearby, murmurs that he seems to have gained an admirer. How long until dawn? He asks. She answers, if it is the same as yesterday, maybe 5 minutes. The good news is that the exit is clearly in sight. Just wait for the moment and run. But while hiding, the bald man and the other plague doctors trapped behind iron bars begging for help. Gunter says it is sad. See human lives about to end. The truth is that he is going to use them like sacrifices in order to escape. He says to Aryan, this is the best choice for the future of humanity, so I would better not do anything silly. But she looks at him and he notices she keeps looking at it, and he realizes that he is about to do something effectively reckless. Comes out from behind the column and calls Bensel, telling him that he has been waiting for it. In an instant the boy stops attacking others and launches himself straight to it. Gunter is forced to propel himself with his arms, grabbing her and running, scolding her for doing something so stupid. Now that they are near the back of the chamber, there is no choice. Must escape. Run. Towards the door he throws himself forward, but mouths. Teeth rise from below, almost biting into it. Crashes into the wall of darkness, then speeds up while the swarm of heads chases after them, screaming that they are delighted with their courage. Say you absolutely must join the collection. Gunter continues to rise, and Aryan warns that they are almost reaching the sunlight. Then heads cling to one of his arms again, telling him to become in part of the collection once again. He will grunts to be released and then smashes his own arm, using the recoil to throw yourself upward. At last emerge from the depths and faces the rising sun. The moment someone relaxes, flame is being backwards. One of the heads mocks, saying that in the end, still managed to take one with them, and it seems to be true. Aryan has disappeared while Gunter screams in despair, but one of the heads that touched the sunlight is reduced to ashes. Vampires call Lord Benzel nearby, asking if it is okay. He responds with sadness that he failed to take revenge. His family because of that monstrous monster. Deformed creatures reassure him, saying that it is well, that the important thing is that he is still alive. The spirit of your family will live on, and everyone will remain proud, but Benzel will warns that this enemy is not someone they cannot afford to face each other. Of losing more family members, will have to deal with this problem himself, and with that he says he needs a few more faces. At that time, one of the vampires says he is fine and announces that they brought 34 faces, perfect for him. Another says he brought 7. Another one adds that he brought 2 Venzels, celebrates by praising them all, saying that they are all wonderful and that it was an incredible job. Yet he admits that this is the one he likes the most, tells Aryan to calm down, that will soon be in it together, will remain united until the end of humanity. Gunter is screaming, demanding that the bald guy connect everything quickly. Bald man tells him to calm down, who never gets anything right when he rushes. Gunter responds furiously, telling him to look at the meter on his wrist. That time is running out, will soon freeze, and that will be the end of it all. Then he asks, could not simply take another person, turn it into a human battery and relive it again? The bald man asks if that means Gunter would not save her. Gunter laughs, who knows, maybe I would not. The bald man explains that unfortunately, it is impossible to create another human battery. The device inside it does not regenerate a mirror. All it does is supply energy to a dead body, temporarily stabilizing it. That is why the body, completely dead, cannot be returned, and usually total decomposition begins after 3 days. Gunter realizes that if he dies now, after 3 days, your body will be too decomposed for restoration. By then it will all be over. The bald guy explains that they were late to the arena because they only received the news of his death in the Colosseum when it was too late for the plan to reach it before it began composition. But unfortunately that did not happen. In addition, create a new human capable of serving as a drummer. It would take years. In other words, if it does not save Aryan, he is also dead. Gunter, still confused, requires an explanation how this device works and where it came from. Bald man says he cannot yet reveal it. As confidence grows among them, you will learn it little by little. Protagonist begins to get up, asks where his right arm is. The bald man replies that it is something special, as the close fight against Venzel. It is hard. How about having something for long range? Gunter smiles, saying it sounds interesting. Place your bets, guys. Machine gun barrel launches grenades or something else. Make your mental bets and let us see who wins. My bet cannon. Back with Venzel, the vampire is in a frenzy and crying, extending the arms, telling the victim not to be afraid, it won't hurt. Blood drips from his hand, crawling on the person's face, consuming it completely. Venzel declares that his blood is both his instrument as his will. The body collapses without a head. Another face has been recorded, smiling through it, says that his blood is his incarnated will. The people in the background are frozen with with terror. Fearing they will be the next Wenzel sets his eyes on Arian and tells her that she is next, that will eventually become one. She just stands there looking back at it, comments on his determination. Eyes full of honor and strength show no fear, even in the face of death, is eager to witness the moment when those same eyes are consumed by fear and repentance. But Arian replies that the only truth that scares her is that no one has been able to save his Wenzel heart. Cross your fingers, and admits that it is truly impressive. Is anxious to see that same face repeat those words once he is inside. Prepares his blood to advance on her when suddenly someone's his name. Out of nowhere another man attacks by saying that he waited for Wenzel will let his guard down to give the perfect hit. Is thrown with a sword, but of course he remains instantly immobilized, and you can't help but wonder why the hell did he scream first. Should have simply given a clean blow. Wenzel's followers apologize, saying that never imagined that a mirror would be between the faces. The captured man shouts that even if he dies someday, a hero will succeed in putting an end to the miserable existence of Wenzel. Wenzel approaches, saying he loves it. Find a shield full of courage like that, which is really a pleasure. When he sees that disgusting faith that humans carry, believing that someone will save or avenge them, can't help but laugh. Then extends his deformed hand, telling the man to look closely. Became like this when he tried to saving people from a fire. Remembers vividly staggering among those sweltering flames, the agony of his burning flesh, which he earned in return. Congratulations for being an angel. Respect for others. Received that for a short time. Soon admiration turned to and was treated as a hero. The boy yells at him to stop lying, that this story cannot be true, but Wenzel insists that he can easily test it. Blood is wiped from the face, revealing a melted and corrupt countenance. The boy recoils in shock, and Wenzel says that this reaction is the exact one that all those who have ever had. He was called. Over time he was no longer welcome anywhere, not because I would have done something wrong, but because in saving a person was permanently disfigured. Everyone turned their backs on him. He again hides his face and declares that this sacrifice will also be painful. In the end people just end up wounded. The angel screams that just because Wenzel suffered in the past does not give him the right to massacre people now. Wenzel coldly replies that this is not a massacre. Someday humanity will finally understand they were trying to achieve. Cuts off his hand trying to get the blood to cover his face when suddenly someone interrupts him, saying he talks too much. Wenzel looks sideways and something cuts his deformed hand. Pillar gray rises like a kind of twisted tree. Turns out that no one could have guessed actually has a weapon that throws huge foam stakes. If you predicted it, you are a Gunter legend. Of course he complains by asking, what a terrible designer created a weapon that is virtually impossible to aim at. At that moment Arian calls him. Gunter, relieved that she is alive, jokes, saying that if he had died, he himself would have killed her. Wenzel comment that for Gunter to have walked there alone must be anxious to die, but Gunter just tells him to stop talking and attacks him. Time is running out. One of us is going to die in a matter of minutes. The weapon he was given is called the bone thrower. The name was invented without much care. Is one of the modified weapons designed by the bald man. An arm adapted to create firing force through muscle energy. Specialized fibers are retracted and then released, violently throwing projectiles such as bullets that can pass through 4 or 5 walls. The disadvantages are obvious. The muscles must first contract completely to fire. Second, only has 6 shots. Gunter murmurs things are almost useless, but at least now has a way of fighting at long distances. The bald man panics, insisting that Wenzel must be killed at all costs. There is no way to save Arian without going through him, and even if they could rescue her and flee, would never escape from lower ranking demons that eventually would take Wenzel to them again. Considering that Gunter's body urgently needs to recharge energy, this enemy must die. Gunter calms down, tells them to relax, and then throws himself forward, promising that all others can die as long as he survives. Back in the catacombs, the murmur wins, that tracing him there was not difficult. Problem is that it only has 15 minutes, and in that time it will have to end as quickly as possible. Mocks Gunter's gun being disgusting, no matter how powerful the shot was. Wenzel boasted that with innumerable layers of protection nothing would ever get through. The moment he said that, Gunter fired by opening a directly into the mass of faces. He admitted that he was still aiming bad, but soon sweat and beat the heart strangely. Wenzel told his allies to protect faces. The rest of them protested, saying that he did not have sense that they should attack the boy and put his movements in their place. Wenzel agreed but told them to be careful. Unfortunately, it really looked like cared about that, which was disturbing. 2 per 1 of them jumped in, swearing to destroy that strange weapon. Gunter warned them to stay away from each other, who was not looking to fight with them yet. Crushed 1.1 punch, smashing him to the ground. But since the heart was not destroyed, the vampire reformed behind him, grabbing his neck and grunting that an angel, disgusting as he could never kill him. Gunter held his head, replied that he was not strong enough, and then he hid up, throwing his remains back into the sea of faces, was launched again, dodging a Vancel attack, while other vampires climbed from below, stopped for a second, turned around, hit one in the face with his fist and followed with an elbow in another, demanding to know why they were not afraid to die. The vampire dissolved, but instantly reformed back from the ground, grabbing his foot, stated that they would always protect Wenzel, because Wenzel was the one who treated them with dignity. Their lives belonged to him. Gunter, baffled by the way they act, suddenly felt something. Wenzel opened his jaws wide and wide, trapping Gunter's head on Tuesday. Grotesque grotesque mock that the boy looked like, proud of their teeth. So this time I would start with what mattered most. Gunter closed his eyes and shot upward through a column of heads, and opening a path, turned away as another attack hit his back, noting, seriously, he had only 3 shots left. The problem was finding out where I was. Bensel in that endless swarm of faces needed a solution. Then Arian's voice resounded. I was calling Bensel. Gunter was confused, without understanding what she was doing, while other vampires approached, ordering her to keep quiet. Gunter did not yet understand, when suddenly a crimson pit shown in front of him was not Wenzel, was another vampire. Gunter dies with a brutal punch to the head, ending it, receded while the mass faces advanced again while Arian shouted Wenzel's name over and over again, his desperate voice. Gunter did not understand at first, until she noticed one of the vampires behind her, telling him to shut up. Arian shouted again, calling Wenzel an angel. Disgusting. Benzel, losing his composure, grunted that it did not matter how much delay it was. Arian yelled at Gunter to realize it. Only certain faces reacted with sadness, and they themselves moved before the others, probably the closest to him. Just as he said, a vampire covered his mouth with his hand, threatening to rip out his tongue. Before I could, another explosion went through the center of the faces. Gunter has clearly realized this now. Some actually reacted faster than the rest. Through the hole he had opened he saw Bensel. The vampire screamed in a panic that it did not matter if they knew where I was. I could simply protect themselves with more heads and disappear again. Tried to resist. Part of the link ended. Connected, the heads had already been cut off. I knew I needed to reconnect it quickly, but Gunter told him to stand still and fired again, destroying part of his arm on his chest. Panic, realizing that he needed to flee, Gunter only came out with a cold smile. Here comes the shot. But at the same time, vampires attacked him from both sides, all lunging at him. Was practically submerged in a COF, but fired another direct shot right into the head. Damn, the guy really had the aim. His finger trembled just a little after the shot. Someone warns him that in order to kill a vampire, the heart must be struck, and now he has run out of shots, which means that they have lost. Gunter, however, asks why, saying to lose, continues to fight and destroy the vampires, is left with only a flash of energy, preparing for a final leap, saying that it is time for the final attack. Arian begs him not to do so, but he states, that will go with your body. Launches against Wenzel, who is in the midst of regeneration, but in the meantime Pencil accelerates the regeneration of his eyes just to see him approach. The next chapter begins with a strange big-headed figure asking him, his father, if he sacrifices himself for humans was worth it. They treated him like an angel. His appearance changed. Maybe it was not that good. At the time I did not know what to believe in, or what I should do, and now he realizes how naive he was. Someone puts a hand on his face. Apparently it is Lord Julius, if I am not mistaken. Tells him that he has been watching him for a long time. Julius says he intends to create a new world, but that the process will be painful and difficult, and that he needs the help of people like, honestly it looks like this is Bensel when he was burned in the fire. He asks what kind of world Julio Julius wants to create, responds with something we do not hear, and the boy shows himself by responding with something we also did not hear. Then Julius extends his hands, telling him to go on this path with him. Boy lowers his head and accepts. Back to the present. Gunter has Benzel's chest with his fist, smiling as he declares that this time he has won. Wenzel's last question is how Gunter can remain a hero, even with that monstrous face, and with that, all the other desperate and panicking vampires begin to dissolve while Gunter loses consciousness. Some time later a cart rolls through the forest. Gunter wakes up inside her without arms, with nothing but that device connected to his head too. Someone tells you to move carefully, that this thing is important and should not be broken. She also thanks him for his hard work. Thanks to him countless lives were saved. Reiner also praises it. Never imagined that the boy who was reborn so recently would already be able to kill a high-ranking vampire. Gunter asks if the others also died. Reiner confirms yes. All were bound by Wenzel's blood. The protagonist immediately concludes that the easiest way to solve it is all about killing pure-blooded vampires, as the rest will disappear. Arian explains that unfortunately, the last pure-blood vampire, Julius, disappeared after the Emperor's death. Gunter asks how strong that one is. Julius, and what are his powers? She admits that no one knows. No one has ever survived a fight against him, or maybe I have never fought at all. No stories to tell. Gunter finds that strange. Vampires do not usually drink blood to survive. Then why is it killing humans instead? Reiner agrees, but sadly, the only option is to defend yourself. He says they should go to the headquarters there. Gunter will better understand what is really going on. Gunter asks if there are still human cities standing. Bald Man responds, the last surviving place is the sacred city, where all survivors gather. Is a beautiful and fortified place. It was also there that they performed all its experiments and discovered how to create their body. Is the last bastion of humanity, standing for more than 100 years without falling, and honestly feels fair, like those stories where everything begins with so much hope and then the titans appear and tear it all down. That moment the bald man gets out of the cart and tells Gunter to watch. Well, the city that you will have to with his own life. The whole place is on fire. Gunter, stunned, he asks if that is only part of the landscape. The next chapter opens with a haired boy, pale up all at once, startled by the news that that Wenzel is dead, immediately jumps, demanding to know who killed him if it was the enemy later, bursts into tears, panicking that the enemy also come and kill him in despair, screams that he does not want to die, until a huge shadow seizes it and calms it down, saying that there is no enemy. The voice mourns Wenzel's death, saying he was such a cute little vampire, but what he does not understand is whether it could really have been made by a human. It is hard to believe that Wenzel was killed by an ordinary being. Julius orders Ian to find the person responsible. A strange mouths in the air and disappears. Julius does not seem in the least pleased with what has happened. Then we are shown download the place known as the Sacred Land. The greatest advantage of mankind when he settled there was his geography was on the edge of a continent after a passage of innumerable mountains. The island itself provided enough land to cultivate. Around him everything was cliffs and rocks, almost impossible to climb and the only way in or out was a 1-200m bridge. With such a natural advantage, a single gas could normally resist 10 armies. So the question is, what is going on? Gunter demands to know why everything seems to be being destroyed. Reinhard admits he has no idea. When they left, the place was perfectly fine. At that moment, the bald guy calls someone named Leonard. Leonard Allegra says he is relieved that the bald man is safe. I was worried that he was the first to die. Look, Arian telling her that she does not need to worry either, who also returned health and saves, and without hiding his feelings, adds that she can call him Leonard whenever she wants. Then turns to Gunter, asking if it is really him. Clearly already aware of the experiment, when Leonard sees the device protruding from Gunter's head, his expression is shaded, makes a snap with the tongue, and Gunter immediately demands to know why the bastard reacts like that. The bald man tells Gunter to relax and explains that Leonard is responsible for the Lowland Defense Force. Clearly, however, the work has not gone very well. Leonard tells everyone to follow him. Then a fire urgent has just been controlled. Gunter insists on an explanation of why the Sacred Land is in such a state. Leonard explains that unfortunately the outer section of the bridge was abandoned, could no longer defend it. The bald man comments that should have been easier now that Wenzel is dead, but Leonard immediately doubts it, asking how this could be possible. Gunter coldly responds that of course it was him, yet Leonard does not seem convinced, makes another snap, playing with the tongue before explaining the moment they left the city were attacked by a force as nothing they would have seen before, something far beyond any vampire of which they would have heard promises show them the strange condition of the soldier. Gunter mocks by asking if this is supposed to be some kind of Leonard serious, says he would not be. Once Gunter sees it for himself, the bald man asks if the city gate they were actually shot down. Leonard nods. Were and only for a championship. The city did not fall complete. That is why he wants Gunter to watch over the bridge until everything is repaired. Protagonist flatly refuses, says he prefers to stay in the rear while meat toys lead the way. Leonard immediately calls him a brazen bastard, demanding to know if you have any idea why it is even there. I live in front of them. 136 comrades volunteered to become heroes of death, and they all died. Researchers worked tirelessly to create these organs, and it is thanks to their sacrifice and to the defense of this city that Gunter is alive. But as a gladiator, he never understood what sacrifice meant. All his life had been to hurt others, just to stay alive. The truth is that he was the one who should have died. No, Gunter, the guy even admits he feels jealousy. Well, go ahead, sign up for it yourself if you prefer stairs. Gunter faces him, walks closer, and says, you are a very straight guy. Every time I meet someone like you, it just makes me want to tell you straight to your face, go to hell. Man reaches his sword, saying they will solve it right now. The guy is completely crazy, right? Could simply hit him and put an end to it. I was joking, but the next chapter actually opens with it by being thrown out of the building and crashing to the ground. Arian really took a hit, warns Gunter to be careful and not to act as aggressively while still being recharged. Damn, it takes forever to recharge. Not even at full capacity yet. Gunter ignores him by telling him to relax, that the sun was only a self-defense. It is getting now, and that idiot is all bandaged up because of our murmuring boy that in any case should have ended with a single stroke. Arian tells Gunter that he must resist, that there is no way I can win this war alone. And one thing in which the other did not lie was how much it cost humanity. Build every part of Gunter's body. Countless resources, countless sacrifices. In addition to that, all the components are decomposing constantly, which means that they always need more and more people offering packaging and materials. She is doing everything possible to save the major number of lives and protect the Sacred Land so that the source of his power is not cut off. Gunter hear all this and just asks if you are not telling him to fight on the first line. She replies that of course she does, that this is the easiest way for them to win. He stops arguing and says it is fine, but in that wants a new weapon. The bald man tells you to come and see the modifications they have. Gunter sees something similar to an arm with a mouth, and he has no idea what the hell he is. The protagonist feels restless while Arian asks if they really produced nothing else. Leonard, who suddenly acts very friendly, explains that they had to defend the city, so there was no time to do much more. Gunter, on the other hand, is furious, saying he should have had a normal arm made instead of that arm-mouth aberration. The bald man insists it is perfect. Bite force is immense. Also comes with a meat bottle. That thing is crazy. Arian explains that with his own willpower can expand or shrink it at will, and obviously is more stronger than any other part of your body, even against Gunter fire. However, he says he would prefer have something like that bone thrower. That was great, even if he had only 6 shots, but Arian explains that it took them 6 months to build this. Each weapon requires an absurd amount of ingredients and human effort, and in addition to that they still need, desperately, arms and legs. The rest of the materials are somewhat easier to get. Gunter asks if they really have nothing else. She replies that unfortunately, it is wartime at the Leonard door, says he has to protect again the city and wishes them both a good night. After that beating now he is really acting polite. Later that night Gunter holds a whispering sword, who finally has something to prepare for the fight. Aryan then explain what is that man said, create the monster of death. Acquired more than 100 people working together, in addition to the support of aristocrat and of the royal family, all were agreed that he was the perfect choice. So you do not need to worry about what I say. No one else. She believes in him. Only he can save this world. Hunter, however, he says he does not give a shit about that. She replies that having that kind of attitude shows that he is fortunate. But just at that moment, protagonist mentions to the 136 people who die become human batteries. She seems thoughtful and Gunter wants to know why, after seeing so many die trying to become human batteries, she still chose to assume that role. She responds simply that it was something that needed to be done. He just looks at her and says he does not understand. Some time later, is in the window, watching closely to see if anything appears. Suddenly Leonard bursts in telling him to get ready. Vampires have returned. Gunter has been connected to that device all day long, apparently to maintain its battery loaded to the maximum. Now makes sense. Disconnect it, and Aryan tells him that he must return alive, that it is too important. Gunter, he just wears a helmet and says he dies. Is it specialty? The mirror activated now, it seems. Completely the paradise of death, warning that whatever that comes out of the shadows will tear it apart. From the forest, twisted creature emerges, wondering why today's hearing is only one. Gunter person observes, curious why the body of that thing is so deformed and why does it move with so much slowness. Immediately bends down, preparing to launch himself, and throws himself forward faster than a vampire. His intention is to finish him off in one fell swoop, but Yellow, still in the distance, greets and declares that in order to please to the audience will give the best of itself. Someone named Evelyn, and says that the first act of the performance is about to begin. King of Pigs, and is interrupted in the middle of the sentence by Gunter, who throws himself with a gash claiming victory. The problem, his sword did not cut anything. The shot was perfect. Then how the hell did that thing dodge it? Creature begins to cry, asking why Gunter is being so rude. Should have followed the function adequately. Then a boy, twisted on the ground, announces that it is the show of the King of Pigs and the dwarf, and that it is time to start his cut. The hand, the blood rises, and out of nowhere it materializes. A Gunter 10 realizes that Leonard's word about this being like they were angels. Curtains open and an attack breaks out from inside. Gunter blocks him and a pig-faced man is thrown aside, but next to him more small. Run it. The dwarf and his pigs all carrying at the same time. Explosions the ground. Gunter easily tears them apart by tearing them apart. Blocks another blow, cuts another one more. Crosses one that was carrying from the side and holds another against the ground. Fighting until the sword splits him furiously. Gunter murmurs that these weaklings are just wasting your time, needing to finish quickly. Smashes another and runs straight into the tent. His plan to take the leader's head. From the inside a deformed mouth laughs and suddenly burst into flames. Gunter lifts his castle by blocking hell. Then the same demon as before appears, mounted on a huge muscular brute. Gunter immediately realizes that this must be the so-called king. The Greek demon on his back declares, King destroys all the enemies of the people. Another torrent of flames roars. Gunter blocks his chest once again. Mass pig roars. Fire of the king burns him. All that Gunter will not be able to take another step forward. Gunter remains calm behind the mirror, playing the bewildered hero. The devil commands the king to ice. Even more flames. Fire intensifies, but Gunter just asks if they really think that is enough. Throws his sword, spinning like a boomerang against the king's face. At the very instant that the beast shakes, Gunter crosses and destroys them both with a devastating punch. Grabs his sword from the other side in comment. I expected this fight to be more difficult. Did demolish them completely. But it is true when the creature appeared for the first time. I call this the first act. Gunter smiles and says to bring on the second show now. Continues to walk through the tent until in the background finds what looks like a sword with something attached at the tip. Around it there are all kinds of teams that seem to torture devices and comment. The decorations here are quite charming. Crying demon thanks him, stuttering, who is not used to someone to make it to the second function. That is why Gunter had prepared it so carefully. Spear. Another slash, but once again his sword touches nothing. Curses, wondering what kind of body has this boy who can't get a hit right on him. The vampire cuts himself, and saying it is time for the second performance. Blood fuses with his body while announces Evelyn Clown's confession of suffering. Fully transformed, tells Gunter to enjoy the show while the whole place begins to collapse around him. Gunter charges to attack, the jumps far away. The protagonist murmur that the bastard is too fast, but wants to see how long Gunter kicks. Blowing rocks, the creature fades in a thin line, dodging everything. Gunter glares at him with his eyes, while the creature pulls two swords out of his mouth and throws himself against him. He blocks with his smile. Another burst of slashes, the swords collide violently. Gunter deflects counterattack with a jump and a slash, but again the mirror twists in a line and escapes. Has no idea how to get something like this right. Then the creature points straight at its helmet, throwing it backwards. backwards. At the next second, bursts out of the tent with a spinning blow. Explosions shake the area. From afar, Leonard observes that Gunter seems to be under enormous pressure. Is difficult to see but clear enough of the attacks of the universe are not working at all. Worse, has already been forced back to the beginning of the bridge. Bald man incites them to take out whatever they have. Wants to see him wow. Aryan is visibly satisfied, and effectively Gunter is now on the bridge, colliding with the burst of punches. Ducks under attack, strikes back, but again the creature dissolves into a line. Grunt that the bastard moves like a worm. The suspect responds with another blast detonation. Shake the bridge. Aryan observes that this creature looks like capable of detecting any attack within a certain range of perception. The bald man asks if there is anything they can do to help. Leonard explains that unfortunately, all weapons were destroyed in the last battle. Aryan adds that fighting on the bridge should be avoided. You must remember that Gunter's body is pure muscle with almost no fat. If it falls into the water, it will inevitably drown. Then comes another blow. Gunter is thrown off the bridge. That very moment, someone shouts that if it falls it is over. But instead of sinking into the river, only rocks. Gunter trying to nail his sword to the edge of the bridge, stopping its fall yet. You know that if the angry current enters the river, will make it almost impossible to escape. As he climbs back, he looks at the meter on his arm. Time is running out fast. This fight will be brutal. From above, the boy smiles sinisterly and descends towards it. Somehow, Gunter manages to propel himself back onto the bridge, but his arm has disappeared. When that happened, perhaps during the king's fire when he carried through, must have been destroyed, and that explains why he has not used his skirt in quite a while. The twisted creature smiles, saying that Gunter is much stronger than the previous ones. But now it is time for Aryan and the bald guy to act. Both call Gunter, giving him a direct order: withdraw. If there is one thing Gunter knows how to do, it is, in an instant, has already run back through the doors. Inside the glass, doors slam behind him. Immediately asks if they came up with any ideas during the fight. Bald guy admits that they are still trying to devise a plan. Aryan says the plan: it is perfect to keep that boy on the bridge until dawn. They have no weapons or weapons suitable for him, and Gunter still can't take on just such a vampire. The sun will come out in 5 hours, but the problem is that its limit is only 2, which means that he will have to go out to fight, go back to reloading, and then go back to combat again. The bald man tells you to wait a moment. That will replace his arm. Gunter asks if he really that is the best solution. Aryan responds that the only fatal flaw of this strategy is that it takes longer than he thinks to recover. Gunter asks how much, and she says that so that he can fight for 2 hours, need 20 minutes of Rio. That is not so bad, he thinks. Of course, there is a demonic monster outside, which makes it risky, but still could have been worse. The bald man adds, must be in a condition stable for reloading to work, cannot simply abandon the vampire, and on top of that, has to protect himself. And Aryan Gunter thinks it will be almost impossible to do all that at the same time. At that time, Leonard opens the door with a bang, throws him to. Gunter takes a hard look and then closes it again. Turning to the soldiers, he orders them to resist. At least 20 minutes. Whatever happens. Gunter murmurs that this guy has lost his mind. Must have seen him fight that vampire. So you should know that there is no chance. In 20 minutes they will all be dead. Reiner replies that they already know. Yet they have chosen to fight and protect the city. The soldiers are there, trembling but with arrows and spears held high ready. And Leonard releases the phrase, if we do not burn here and now, who else will refuse extradition? The door bursts into pieces and chaos breaks through. Outside, the soldiers shout in despair, ordering fire, ordering an attack. As blood seeps under the door, first it seems that Gunter laughs but is not, only standing with his eyes closed, trying to stay whole. Outside, the soldiers are torn apart. Leonard falls to the ground and a reflection hovers over him, about to strike. He lifts his spirit's crushed head but still blocks the first attack. The Argentinian goes for a second hit, and then Gunter walked through the wall, shooting with his bone-throwing arm. Fighting with that monstrous jaw, you got distracted. You did not think an attack could come from the wall? Leonard, surprised, demands to know what he is doing. Gunter there, if he had just started reloading. Even the ball is impressed that the one-arm stroke will work. Gunter thinks for himself. Everyone knows he can't keep this fight going here for a long time. With all these people around, it only took him 5 minutes to recover. Can't continue this battle until dawn. That is because he is going to take this boy to another place. With that, he throws himself off the bridge together with the creature, crashing into the sea below, declaring that now neither of them will escape. Underwater, holds the corpse with one arm, punching his stomach, laughs, asking what the bastard thinks about fighting in a place like this. Swears that he will crush his heart with his own hand. The chest is agitated, coiling around it like a snake, thrusting his sword into his arm by the human battery connection. Its first limb is easily torn off. The mouth arm rips off a piece of meat before you get another lunge, this time straight in the mirror. Both scream, struggling in the black water. The boy tries swim up, but Gunter emerges from below and bites it in the stomach, growls that this alone will not be enough to kill him. With that bite, the creature's heart is exposed. Throws another blow again just when Gunter goes for another bite, and then a voice a woman's voice reminds her of. They're in that wasteland where no one survived and there was not a single being alive. You called me. She once heard the cry of someone dying, screaming with every piece of force he had left. As he approached, he felt relief. Then darkness invaded it. This was a world in which no one would choose, never be born, and yet, even someone who was born in a wasteland, left to rot, still desperately wanted to survive. For a while it remained. If their screams were really for salvation. And now standing in front of him with bodies scattered everywhere, says he has his answer. The beaten and broken boy asks what that means. Suddenly the strange woman grabs his face and tells him he always wanted revenge. No one wants to be born in this world. No one wants to continue living here. Even so, you screamed to be saved with everything you had. You were born with that will to survive, like a hungry dog, and that impulse, that will, comes from your desire to take revenge on those who put you in this world and of those who abandoned you. Gunter closes his eyes and says yes. She tells him to get ready for the next fight. We'll have to demonstrate its will. Suddenly someone calls his name, and the only thing left is his head, smiling with that crazy grimace. Looks like he actually died of drowning. Luckily, as his head was separated and the brain remained intact, it is still alive. His body was too heavy, loaded with muscles to be recovered, but his head floated. Someone picks it up, thanking you for being alive, while Leonard tells them to hurry up because the fight is not over yet. Damn it, only the head survived now. Leave it to the Reinhardt guy is in shock, seeing only his head being revived, reacting in a strange way. I need to understand what Gunter is saying. Arian calms him down, explaining that he can't speak well without a torso. The new body is almost finished, just have to wait a little. Yet his head moves in an unsettling way. Sometime later, already restored, he murmurs, the last fight was boring as hell. Ask if more vampires have appeared. Leonard says no, but that thing is probably still alive. Gunter insists that it is impossible for bit the creature's heart. Leonard replies that he wants to believe it too. That where they found the head of. Gunter also saw prints coming out of the water, followed the tracks and found a strange cart, probably belonging to vampires. As they had no chance of winning direct, the priority was to recover Gunter's body. Gunter refuses to believe it, telling them to just look at their teeth. That shattered Commander Leonard's heart awards, but insists that they must verify. Anyway, just to be on the safe side, the group advances stealthily through the bushes and effectively. Suspicious cart sighted. Leonard tells Gunter to check it out, but be very careful. As Gunter approaches, he sees that the footprints are fresh. Windows are covered. Clearly a vampire hiding from the sun. And if a high-ranking vampire is inside, this could be your best chance of gaining an advantage. Slowly reaches the door, opens it, and finds the cart empty. Enters and hears a chilling laugh resounding. The door slams shut. At that very moment, something is thrown to his head from the side, but he blocks it. Fight breaks out in the gallery. Can't see anything. One of those little ones, dwarves armed with, throws him out, and Gunter orders the others not to interfere. Another stranger appears carrying a small house on his head. Pig King's castle has arrived. Gunter demands to know why they are so weak if they are vampires. The creature explains that they find it difficult to walk and fight because they are all failed births. Even worse, some are heroes born of other heroes. Twisted over twisted. Gunter mocks by saying he does not care about spears. To one side and declare that it is time to take everyone down because kill humans without hesitation. The one who carries the little house on his back says it is okay. Just follow it and take it to the final show. Gunter follows, surrounded by countless spectators watching him, murmuring that the pig squeals they make are ridiculous, especially since they are not even pigs. Creature explains that it is because we're not created as humans but as pigs. Asians, that is why they sound like this. Run the call and announces that it is time to see the most beautiful creation of all. There is the strange Evelyn. Gunter enters glaring with his eyes and she greets him, saying that the audience has arrived. He demands to know how she is still alive, if he has already eaten his heart. She explains that a vampire does not die unless the whole heart is destroyed. He just ripped off a piece of him. The only problem now is that since his heart is no longer complete, can no longer use the power of Gunter blood. Thanks him, saying that it is very kind of you. Explain everything so clearly, but now it is nothing more than a shadow waiting for the sun. With that you launch, declaring that this time he will not survive. Outside, Leonard asks how much time the guy has left. They say 50, and the plan is that if another 10 pass without any news, we'll try to enter and help. At that moment one of the boys asks, those vampires were ever human? Leonard, confused, really does not get it. Then the guy tells her a story that once heard about the children in a town called Trumps, where orphans kept disappearing. While they were looking for them, they found a strange place, a basement with no sunlight at all, full of tools destined to break, human bones, all kinds of metals and rare objects. And there at the back of the room, piles of stacked broken skeletons that clearly appeared to belong to young humans. The guy to his side wants to know what was going on in that place. The man simply explains that he heard that they were manufactured there. Products apparently were making and selling bizarre human, and the smaller and deformed were more expensive and sold. The guy says it is ridiculous, who would buy something like that? The chemical responds that it was just gossip, he has no idea. But rumors said that they were probably rich and noble traders. That was because having a servant extremely small was like a symbol of power, as if it were a jewel, some kind of rare material. The man says he understands it, but because someone would do something like that to a person, the other explained, which maybe it was because they already had everything in this world, and unless it was something unusual and weird, they did not want it. The end of the story says that some of the survivors of that place were sold to a thought it was an exaggerated story. Silly indeed. Perhaps those there had been the victims, then released the heavy heavy. Asks the captain if barrel that are protecting people behind that bridge are really worth. And man, while they are lost in all this philosophy, the protagonist smashes the door with his sword. The vampire jumps and says he was suffocated, scraped him off and broke his bones. The horrendous pain never dies, even when he was crying and begging to be killed and ignored, until one day suddenly they let him go and told him he was free. I understand why. Why all this torment, all that pain, all that time, and why out of nowhere was he given this supposed freedom? Was then when the man with the pen on his hat said, "Evelyn, fashion has passed." Damn. Evelyn laughs. Then his face hardens and he looks at him again, fixedly. She says she wants to ask one last thing. What is the fashion now? Stories with systems. Stories with a protagonist who wastes money and women. That is what is popular. Anything else can be informed. Gunter says that for him fashion is, no matter what happens he survives in the end, is the story of a man. The whole scene with Evelyn first shows his face in silence, then his reaction saying that it is something difficult, yes, definitely a performance. And man, the carriage is destroyed. Sunlight enters and she is completely turned to ashes. Damn, slightly anticlimactic, but I think it was intentional, just to make us heavy with that psychological burden. Mientras tanto, back in Val, of how it seems that already killed 2 high-ranking vampires. And according to what people are saying, there are about 6 more around Val. Knowing this, the guy says he is really going to have a lot to deal with. The market comment that they will have to help because he won't be able to handle it alone, but the man tells him to stop being crazy because he should care about those people who are worthless. They also had a natural strength connected to the mainland. Its side beyond the sea had a much better chance of competing. Not to mention that vampires hate water. Have you ever heard of a vampire swimmer? And then just at that moment, hear a knock, then another hit, and the guy asks what that is. We are not going to find out now because we are seeing Gunter in a suit, asking if they are really going to a festival. When everything is ruined, she says yes, which is time to celebrate the death of 2 high-ranking vampires, and appears to be visiting the outer region. Gunter says he seems to be an impressive person doing something like this. When life and time are at stake, the bald guy responds that the person come is the current leader of Baitao. It was still better that Gunter did not say anything strange to him, because that would only be a huge headache. He does not quite understand it, but then he approaches carriage, and someone announces that His Excellence is coming, the sole heiress of the pure lineage, Her Majesty Queen Olivia Howe. Everyone welcomes it and leans in while Gunter just looks at the troublemaker. Does look astute. For a second you can already notice, oh, what an artist is talented, but she is also a spoiled brat, complaining that the place is dirty and smells strange. The nearby man apologizes while Gunter murmurs, which is crazy. To say something like this in the middle of a obviously sucks. Immediately the bald man trembles, while the protagonist does not care in the slightest. She, however, it is approaching, and says he must be the so-called. Approaches and looks at him and says he is quite ugly, probably because his body was still modified. Heard that he has already shot down 2 high-ranking vampires, and why? Personally, to congratulate him on all that he has done. One of the men next to him applauded, saying that it is an example fighting so hard for the people and for the queen's heart. She thanks them for their compliment, but says it is better go in and out of this filth. Inside one of the spiderweb houses, everywhere still complains, place is dirty, oh queen. I honestly can't wait for you to get beaten up, then be saved by our grandfather, just to make him so Chad to get a blow to your head. The man with brown hair says that all will be severely punished for the disorder, but she will replies that it is fine, which is wartime, and will be generous and only this time understanding. At that moment he calls Gunter and asks what reward he wants. Arian responds instead, saying that what they really need are more men and support materials. She reminds everyone that innumerable nobles and royals had doubted the alleged rejection of, but now that the plan it worked, and this is one way to put into war, need more help to sustain everything. That is why it is asking for full support now to be able to take great steps towards peace. Queen, however, looks at her and asks if she is not someone, even if they recognize the girl's merits, how you can give all that support with her limited resources. She, Olivia Howe, as the last true descendant of the royal family, always needs to invest in countless future possibilities to keep alive your opportunities. So for now, the support Arian receives is the best it will have. That is a fact that will not change. Gunter immediately releases what the house is saying. The bald man explains that she thought this plan would fail, so they invested in many other weapons. Gunter then raises his voice and she hears him, so it can't even admit that its plan and decisions were wrong. Arian, a little discouraged, says it should at least give recognition who were sacrificed as part of the plan. The brown-haired man calls it rude, but the queen responds again by saying, who always wanted research and had demanded that the project be carried out in secret, always found this business of bringing back to a dead man to be used as a shield. After all, something like this alone would tarnish the honor and reputation of the royal family. That is why nothing can be made official. Otherwise, the existence of the property would be made public, and that would be bad for everyone. Then declares that the reward will be the title of count, along with a fertile territory in the southern region. The weird guy next to him dies again, praising the queen as incredible in his judgment, and man then extends his little hand and says to come over and give him a kiss if they accept the reward of pointing light, with a look and murmur that he can't stand this in a situation where no one knows if they are going to die today or tomorrow. She is there rambling about honor and pride, it seems, who brought some mad woman who claims claims to be the queen. Humanity is doomed. Men in the background arrayed with his majesty while they tell Gunter to shut up. And now the queen herself begins to lose patience and orders him to the protagonist, who closes his mouth. Oh no, now I am looking forward to the kill a vampire, while Gunter just stands there laughing in his face. Then two men burst through the door and Leonard warns that danger is approaching. A huge creature was heading directly towards Bajel. Outside observing, the bald man tells Gunter not to lose his head, but Gunter replies that everyone is going to die anyway, including himself, so he is not going to respect that weird woman. Arian does not even care. Just wants to know if it is true that Toronto was destroyed in a single night. The blonde answer that yes, that thing appeared in an instant and it all away in the act. Only a few strokes and nothing remained. Gunter says it makes no sense talking about blows strong like this. They are supposed to be talking about a vampire. But that is when the bald man starts to tremble, asking what the hell was that thing rising on the horizon. My god, he really was a Titan. Attack on Titan, here we go. Our boy is about to become Eren Yeager. Maybe every short man's dream can come true, connecting those 50m legs. Of course, with every step everything was being destroyed, and the protagonist asks if the meaning of the word vampire has not been a little distorted. How could that thing be a vampire? Someone explains that a vampire is someone who uses the power of blood, and as far as she knows, the high ranking with sufficient strength and willpower, they can do whatever they want, mold and change whatever they want with their blood. That vampire, he was probably the one known as the Titan of Wisdom. Miranda, look at him, he even tore down the walls of the capital city. Oh cunning bastard, I understood the reference. And of course no bullets, no weapon, nothing worked against that skin of his that seemed as hard as steel. I had already heard the rumors. To see him face to face like this was terrifying. Gunter comment that for someone no one had ever seen looks quite famous. She says yes, that is precisely why they have become countless studies trying to find their weakness. Tells her to let go and she says it is simple. None has no weakness. Carriages are already rushing and she explains that intensively. That is all the information they have. No one has been able to cut their skin, so no one knows what is inside. Both, however, come to the same conclusion. If that thing enters Ball, the whole city will fall. Arian says that is why they have always tried track the suspect. Gunter wants to know where he is headed. The bald man replies that they obviously have no idea. Apparently Miranda always moves spontaneously, but someone insists, like any other, must burn in the sun. Gunter finds him dead. Something that size would need a peculiar place to hide, but she shakes her head, says that when the sun rises it transforms in another way that is not a Titan, and it is at that moment right after the transformation when it has to be eliminated. That is the only thing she thinks could work. Gunter realizes that he basically is a deadly game of hide and seek. The bald man says that looking at the map today, at the speed at which it moves, will not yet arrive in Bajel, so you have a few days to prepare for this rhythm. We'll probably take refuge in some ruined town with many buildings, and if they do not find it there, it is very likely that tomorrow it will go into casualty. The winner of this battle would be decided in that town. Arrive already seeing the gigantic footprint. At least that makes it easier. Track it as soon as Gunter arrives. Wants the perfect answer. Someone point to him where the corpse is, but Leonard replies that they will first have to review the 120 houses there. Starting in the south, he asked the queen for troops, but unfortunately there were not so many available. The man across the street, I thought the queen had ordered at most to remain at the base and reinforce the defenses. Gunter laughs, saying it is clear that his pride matters more than any human life. But with no time to waste, Leonard simply order everyone to start looking for had to be divided into groups. Enter each house and check as much as possible. So here we are with them coming in. NG everything. Investigating drawers and boxes, including knocking down doors. Gunter enters and wonders, where the hell is that damn princess type? Bastard was a muscular giant, so he thought he had to be a human too. Great. That is why it was concentrated in open spaces instead of on her shoulders. Walks to a door and hits her and says this looks perfect. A soldier reports that nothing has yet been found. The sun is still up and the bald man thinks something is wrong. Only a few houses left. Ariel replies that could be hiding in a difficult way of imagining. Gunter hits the ground in frustration, saying that it has already destroyed more than 10 houses and has found not even a rat, much one vampire. Suddenly Echo in the hallway stops, confused, goes out and runs after them. By turning the corner, there is something covered with what appears to be a black cloth between. Close your eyes, wondering what that strange mouth was supposed to be. The scene changes to Lord Julius, and that mouth whispers in his ear, now knows that the immortal hero is there, and the shadow confirms it. The man is safe. Another of Altal's creations, the one with the big mouth, wants to know what is this casual that all humans continue to talk about. All he knows is that it is the only city left intact. Julius then explains that Bajel is really where it all began. That is why he has been prolonging, because it must also end up there, and the time has come. The one with sharp teeth says that if that is the order he will tell Miranda. Julius says he is fine but also wants to be brought to him, to the immortal paradise. The sun keeps going down and just then one of the houses explodes. The bald man is already calling Gunter when he enters, asking ask if he is a vampire, but instead a boy goes out with a bear. About suicide asks if he could be the creature, but everyone says it is impossible. The sun would set in an hour and now they were screwed up, because if he is not here he has already moved. Leonard orders them to resume the search while Gunter complains that it is impossible to find something when they do not even know what they are looking for. Arian, it only says that it is the only option they do not have. Many people here and there is no other way to handle it. Then Leonard suggests burning all the houses. Whether or not something is hidden inside human will be shown. Someone thinks it is too risky. With the forest around the whole island could catch fire. Gunter tells him to let them look for another solution. But the bald man refuses, saying they can't back down, because if they do, the next will be low. Reminds him of Gunter, which was created for the plan to protect that city. Giving up was never an option. It was time for everyone to come back for. He runs away and Gunter is confused until Leonard explains that Reiner's family is in Bajel, has a daughter for whom he cares deeply. Gunter smiles with irony and says that the bald man finally managed to do something useful with his life, while Leonard shouts to everyone to keep looking and not to give up. Time passes and Reiner realizes that there is nothing here in the sun. Is about to get on when he listens to a sound behind him, turns around and inside a box something is. Suddenly the whole house bursts and something begins to rise. He is thrown back by the impact while Gunter murmurs that he knew something like this was going to happen. Now everyone was screwed. Arian asks what happened and the bald guy explains that he found it. In this situation, that moment I should have killed him. Protagonist wants to know, what does it mean with not killing him when he had the opportunity? Then explains that inside the box what he found was a Gunter child. Is impacted, but right in front of them the Titan rises. As soon as the beast takes shape, pairs a blow and throws it directly against the trio. Next chapter, the soldiers try flee, but the desert crushes them with its, and from a distance you can already see the city. Gunter appears loading a column, turns it 3 times and throws it but hits Titan's arm as if it were nothing more than a tooth. He jumps and throws a punch too, but that is okay, as they had warned that skin could not bend. Continues to strike, cutting left and right, but nothing works until even his arm breaks. Then the monster moves, raising his hand to crush it, but he dodges, continues to climb up his arm, thinking that no matter how strong something is, everything has a weakness. Another blow comes, the beast gathers its palms, but he slips back in and keeps climbing. Yet in the midst of this persecution, suddenly loses its grip, and the Titan manages to catch it by the foot, looking directly into his eye. Gunter wonders if that could be the point exposed. That, damn it, the boy shakes it with a blow, and the boy is completely dead. At the same time, the queen sees the Titan approaching, was crossing the ocean effortlessly. Queen declares that there is no such thing as an immortal vampire. She has not met any of them tall rank, but has seen many low ranking be supported by ordinary people. That is why he says they do not need to that disgusting monster. O queen, do us a favor and continue with the greatest possible pain. Then it appears the number 1 simp, saying that all adjust are complete and ready for launch. Had built a wall, huge number of spear parts, but seriously, if a spear does not, throwing 50,000 will not change any. 50,000 spears will still not enter. The man insists, in which they have 100 giant monsters with the force 100 horsepower tension. The chest skin would be easily, and his heart torn away, would win without a trace of him. Queen laughs, saying that the moment it falls, everyone will recognize her as the true emperor, the one that governs humanity. Orders everyone to witness the power of the royal family, raising your hands, looking straight ahead. Orders it to be shot. The others gather around what is left of Gunter, and the bald man says he can't believe it. This is what is left of humanity's hope. Tells himself that he should have been firmer, that if I had not hesitated for a second, none of this would have happened. Is right, he has a daughter in town, and hesitated to kill that pale child in the box set. Arian is sad about Gunter, when suddenly something falls next to them. Is a piece of his head with a small hand, trying to say that he is still alive. Is then when they realize that I had been in the tree all this time, thanks someone. There himself, saying that he was glad he survived, while the poor man can't even talk. Soon they are in the carriage with Gunter, asking for new parts. Could not open his mouth correctly, but Reiner continues to watch and manages to translate some. As you cannot open your mouth, tack your eyes. Ariane says he understands, but even if they destroy the eye, the heart will remain intact. Then whisper something more to Reiner than you did will basically enter the body through the eye and run straight to the heart. Ariane stops to think and admits that if they succeed, enter through the eye like that, may have a chance. The problem is to discover how to get to the head in the first place. Just then, listen to the download of the sequence. Endless arrows fired at the Titan, banging directly into his chest. Everyone knew that that was the weapon that the queen had prepared, and it really looked pretty strong. But guess what? When the smoke dissipates, the Titan is still there intact. Not a single one went through. One of the men on the wall says the obvious. Titan did not fall and continues to approach. Another runs and asks the queen what they should do, but she demands to know the following plan. The man hesitates to explain it while she grits teeth of rage. And with that, the Titan is coming to town. The bald man continues to blame himself, saying that it should have been more decisive. Suddenly someone screams for his father and runs to embrace him. She has a four-armed Gunter on her back, saying to make sure he is safe. No wonder he is the great general. Reiner calls, demanding to know why it has not yet been evacuated. Told him that once he approached, he should should withdraw, but she shows that she brought. I get a piece of the boy's body, and in addition to that, her hair was already falling from so much stress for his father. Turns out to be huge and muscular. That is why he says that the bald man should care about himself rather than her. He realizes that he is right. While the protagonist is in the arms of Arian, struggling to babble something, the strange girl approaches, extending his hand saying that he wants to greet him, is excited to finally meet him, but he only looks at his hand, fulminating her with even more anger, not knowing if he is making fun of him. The girl apologizes and someone says they do not have time. Need to connect parts 253 and 350, and they will climb the Titan's body. Then says that if it is the piece 350 she has already done something similar will connect that piece and the bald man will bring back a crucial part of it. Begins to say that it seems that the steps have stopped when suddenly, right in front of him, the Titan's kick. Full impact on the girl. Damn, it hurt to see her. I thought I was going to be that tough, cool character, but instead it was destroyed. You have fortunately not. The next chapter begins with Reiner saving her at the last moment. The problem is that he is about to fall, and the place he clings to is breaking up. She shouts at him to stop being a madman. Take this part of paradise, the most important, and I gave it to the boy. Place where they are held is collapsing, but then man, the protagonist, an angel, clings to the piece with nothing but his mouth, biting the bald man's arm. That is all he has left, with a head and an arm, is emitting unintelligible sounds, while the bald man does not understand. All while the Titan advances by sweeping through the city. People are being evacuated and Leonard orders everyone to the edge of the island. That time when the queen appears, asking how long your men can survive. He replies that at this rate they won't last until the night. She asks about the yellow, and he says it looks like they are preparing to fight the Titan in another way. Queen comments that by the looks of it, everyone is going to die. Anyway, as this is an island with only one entrance and exit, at least if it does not remain no one alive, there will be no one around to judge her, which in the end was not so bad, was it? Someone kills her is all I ask for, is probably exactly what Leonard is thinking at that moment. The scene changes to the production area, and our boy has a handpiece of giant frog held in the mouth, hooks it on the bald man's head and hits it in its place. Says that at least adhesion works very well. Reiner explains that it is a weapon made from the arm of some beast lizard designed to adhere to it in order to climb. The bald man thanks him for saving him. Gunter responds abruptly that he saved no one. What he saved was the body piece he needed. He did not care if the bald guy had died, who now had a big scar on his head. Bald guy just murmurs that Gunter is always like this. There must have been a moment when he remembered to have been happy in the presence of someone else. Look up and ask, the hell is this, and wants to know if he is. His relatives did not even have the courage to kill him, so simply they threw what was left of the fetus into the pile of garbage. Or maybe I should have been happy back in the arena, where the only option was to kill or be killed, place where the only value I had. His life was the money that people bet on the winner. Tells him to stop being funny, because there was never anything happy or interesting in his life. So far the only people around him were those who tried to kill or tear him down, and he still survived, because even if everyone wanted to see him dead, he would continue to fight and survive. Nothing in the world was more valuable than that. So he wants to paint and see who is still alive at the end, and is sure it will be him. But Reiner then says that a life in which all you want is Mexican is a life in which you have nothing. Gun glares at it with her eyes, but then the others announced that the parts had been connected. Protagonist starts the piece of his head and stands up. 4 arms. Someone calls him, but he does not answer. Finally says he would like to see him tomorrow. He turns around saying it is a joke and leaves the room, looking directly at the Titan on the of the city, almost falling into the sea. People can only watch as the Titan approaches, then suddenly look down and see something climbing up his leg. Is Gunter climbing the Titan at full speed, swings a palm tree to crush it, but Gunter jumps, clings with his extra hands, and continues climbing. Curse. Now it is fast and climbing the Titan's back. I knew that at this rate they could not catch it, but it was absurdly flexible. Hits him by sending him flying. Gunter crashes to the ground, looks at his arm and says it happened again, then jumps back to the Titan, begins to climb the debris bridge. The beast throws a fist, but he jumps visa a falling stone and propelled upward, clings again with the piece of lizard hand. The bastard gets another hit, him dodges underneath, moves along the other arm. More blows come, one after the other, slides around, but now it looks like it has been slammed against the floor. Except that no, because when the boy hit him, clung to the edge of his hand, and there under the impact you notice something strange, like a magic point under the island. Does not understand why something so strange is there, but his thought is cut off when the beast shakes violently his arm, throws him to the ground, and comes down with another crushing blow. From afar someone shouts Gunter's name. Had lost a leg. Gunter stops, losing angles at once. Another blow crosses the city and rips him off one of its lizard arms. The creature looks at him fiercely as he screams, desperately clinging, until finally reaches the back of the Titan's neck. At that time, everything I needed was for the boy to be distracted for only a second. Just then the Titan, about to catch it, suddenly deviates. The look as if I had seen someone or some, freezes for a brief instant, and it is then that Gunter lunges upward, landing on his head. The hero tries to catch him, but then something strange happens, because the next chapter begins with a small doll. Girl holds it, saying that he could do nothing while beat his brother, because the mirror in front of her was too big, was too strong. Their rock-solid muscles. Julius tells the girl not to be afraid. They would create together a world where monsters did not exist. And now we see in the fight that Miranda, I doubt out for a second because in the wall saw a girl protecting her brother. That was the moment he stopped attacking Gunter and Gunter trying to jump on himself. When the boy turned to catch him, he between his hands and trying to get in through his eye curse. And in just 1 second the thing collapsed right in front of everyone. Incredible. Protagonist only needed to enter. That was all, problem solved. Now he walks like a cripple without an arm and a leg. Yes, but at least he killed him. People of the city look at it, unable to process what kind of body that was. Kind of monster I had just defeated. The girl who had protected her brother asks if he is the one who killed the giant. He turns around and says yes. What is the problem? Naturally she thanks him, saying that thanks to him he survived, and his little brother also sends him his love. Gunter simply ignores it and keeps walking. The scene changes to praising him, asking how he managed to move so well with 4 arms. It was my first time fighting like this. He really was a talented warrior. Born if I had a more attractive face, could easily erect a statue of him in the city or perhaps even graft some hair since they are in it area. However it costs. From one side, puts his hand on his chest and says it is a relief. See him safe again. He asks if she is sure, because his expression had not changed a bit. Damn, what kind of atmosphere this is. Gunter himself is confused, but then look who enters, interrupting the pleasant atmosphere, proclaiming herself the queen. She says that in the end she was the one who killed to the entertainment giant, but the damage was enormous. Yet thanks to its evacuation order, extremely accurate, almost no citizen died. Most of its weapons were destroyed, but at least the people survived. And now Claris. It is time to decide who should bet for all this chaos. Asks Captain Reiner if he has any ideas. News reached him that at a crucial moment, when he could have killed the vampire, he hesitated, and everything ended up happening because of that. Seems to be a critical error, one that guarantees public execution. My God, there is no way. Alice begs for mercy, saying that even if his father was a mercenary, I had a soft heart and never killed anyone. But the queen refuses, saying that unfortunately, someone should be punished for everything Gunter has been through, saying that the more listen to this crazier old witch sounds. I'm sure the bald man is a coward, but in his eyes, the greatest guilt lies with the one who, wasting troops, preparing handmade weapons and made it difficult to find that damn box. But of course, in front of everyone, she will not admit who in the end was responsible for almost killing everyone. Queen stares at him, demanding to know what you are talking about, and then out of nowhere appears a man at her side, saying that the queen is still playing a role for which Hunter serves us. Realizes that he did not even notice the man approach, and before the queen can understand the protagonist's head at all, while on the ground, the stranger declares that he is the king's brother, the last true surviving royal, he who failed to become king, known as Velvet Hound, and as part of the promise he made to Julius, came here to take the immortal hero protagonist that is only ahead against a 20-armed monster. Impossible. The next chapter opens with soldiers being completely destroyed by this Velvet, tells them not to waste their lives so uselessly, that he is the last real according to Julius, has to take the immortal hero, so they better not get in their way, will leave without killing anyone, shows their head, saying they won't want to die for something like this. Asiansly accept, turn away, because none of them could kill him anyway. That time when Olivia stands in front of him, saying that he has heard rumors that his uncle had really become a hero, he replies that he still seems to be suffering a lot, and what he wants to know is whether the queen or the princess, they really move in front of him by that head. She looks him in the eye and of course simply turns away, as if he really cared about that. Velvet passes by and then says his steps are true, makes no sound when walking, clearly touched a fiber in her, leaving her furious with rage. Velvet continues to advance under escort, while everyone watches. Curiosity does not react, while Reiner says they have to stop this. That man crosses the bridge and enters the forest. This place is finished. Forest is full of obstacles, difficult to track and even harder to fight, and the dawn is coming soon. Had to buy time to get Gunter back. Reiner's daughter then screams, asking why he is not running, but only walking. Velvet replies that true never run compared to others. Well then they better follow it and observe until the sun rises, because it will not run. They follow it, cross the bridge until someone orders them to stop. Is Leonard standing face to face with nothing but his courage. Velvet asks, you really think block the way for the sake of a head? And Leonard, damn it, says yes. Velvet wants to know why. Leonard replies that it is because this man is the last hope of humanity, laughs saying it is funny. Every human being who has known has lived alone for himself. In the end those who most hurt humans are other humans. Then why Leonard believes it is worth risking his life for creatures so ugly. Leonard lowers your head, but suddenly he picks it up and declares that he still believes that humanity is worth saving. No matter how dark the world is, he believed in the goodness of humans that never lost their light, and for those who only wanted to kill each other, he believed it was the light of the righteous, the one that would heal them. And it was not just him, everyone felt the same way, would not stay there. I wish this choice would turn them into heroes, brave without a doubt, and even Velvet admits it. Velvet responds that it is a touching speech. Pity that out of the 1,000 people in the city, only 5 are in front of him. That would really be enough to stop him. Leonard ignores the threat and tells Gunn, since he had once saved him, now it was their turn to do the same and charge against him. I honestly thought they would invent some strategy, some crazy movement, but not. We see Leonard just thank you for being with him. They replied that since they had saved life once, they were not afraid to die. What they feared most was to die senseless. Leonard assured them that it would never be meaningless, even if they were no one important ever written in history, never the protagonists of the world, even if they were not great generals or kings. Maybe that tiny sparkle of courage becomes strength for something greater. At least that is what he thought. Soldiers look at each other and smile, then damn it, are destroyed, lying on the ground with one leg, one arm torn off. Leonard also passes by without an arm. Velvet passes by with a, saying that they were useless but still fine. Admirable su valor. And that is why he will spare their lives, because mercy, it is also the duty of, continues to advance into the forest, saying that once inside, even do not need to walk, is the perfect place to hide from the eyes of the prey. But then someone calls him to wait. Is Arian. King asks if she intends to fight him. She replies that yes. He warns her that a show of mercy is more than enough. If they fight, he guarantees that he will die. Gunter's head is right there, clearly trying to say something, and someone responds that they do not have future without that head. So if they are going to do something, it must be trying to save. Although this was a man who had lived all his life fighting alone. Looks at her and says just another touching confession. Coincidentally, she blushes a little, but then he unsheathes his sword, saying that humbly this is where she will die. Without hesitation, he throws a slash to cut it, but she barely manages to raise his sword to block. Squinting one eye, nothing happens. Or when it opens them again, the sun had already risen and his arm was burning. Velvet gets it. Had been trapped in the shade of one of the few trees near the forest, murmurs that if I had taken only 50 more steps, would have been safe. Only 50 steps, such a small but important distance. Now the queen practically laughs at him, saying that it really is the face of the Real, pathetic and mysterious, hiding under a small tree, risking his life, terrified of death. At least I should have brought a low-class vampire to cover it or something like that. But it is silly to think that since he was expelled from without a single follower, of course it has no vampire. Velvet admits it. When his father exiled him, was sent to an island and had no one by his side. Then what will the queen do now? Says it is time to finish with a member of the royal family. Maybe I should cut off part of that tree or set it on fire completely. Skinny answers that destroying the tree to burn it in the sun is not something an honorable would do. He never killed unnecessarily, and if he wanted to flee he could easily have escaped, but everything it does is to defend the true honor of being. That is why being trapped under this tree is part of the process. Defender Sue honor. Even if she takes advantage of that weakness to kill him in such a cowardly way, would be unthinkable for a descendant of the royal line. Someone calls it sophisteria, an argument created to give the illusion of truth. I'm super intelligent. I definitely did not just read it on Google, it says so, because this man is trapped in the shadows. Only thanks to the sacrifice of Thess should cut down that tree now to finish it off. Do not ignore it. El honor, and the sacrifice of all those who gave their lives. Velvet then declares that as will make an honorable suggestion. Arian continues to call his majesty, while he wants to know if he will listen to it. Coincidentally, the queen looks away to the side, looks at him again, and his expression changes. The next chapter. Open up to someone calling her pathetic. Maybe it is him. Mocking that hold the fork 3 times during a meal shows that he has no understanding of etiquette. It is now clear why her father did not want her. Was never a vessel worthy of really honoring. To the name of Olivia the Fool. The scene changes to its #1 fan, asking if he really accepted the offer. She replies that rejecting something fair would be dishonorable, and who this time will prove that he is worthy of. Then demands to know where he was. Patrick during all this chaos. As soon as he saw it, he doubts a moment before saying that he was looking for a way to escape with her. Things got too dangerous. She responds furiously. Who knows that he was really just ensuring an escape route for itself. Either way it will be better disappear from your sight without a word. Cut off his arms and legs, and that I do not understand that his if always will be next to hers. He simply replies that he understands and leaves. On the bridge someone asks whether they are really going to let that vampire live and why. Arian explains that it seems to be because they accepted the duel. Finds it ridiculous since that man is just trapped thanks to the sacrifice of all. Ariane replies that they have no choice but to accept. The bald man then asks what duel they are talking about. The scene returns to the tree, where a man lifts up arms and declares that he is the true warrior among warriors, is John Bayer of the Bayer family, and was there as a representative of the great queen. Ready to finish painting with his fist is then when someone explains that it is an honorable duel of fists. Basically both will be face to face with one blow at a time. Whoever receives a punch and then gives one step later he loses. Understands the idea is to continue hitting each other until one of them collapses. What she thinks is ridiculous is that everyone are risking their lives by fighting here just for such a stupid contest. Decide the future of humanity. Reiner says it does not matter. The goal is to regain Gunter's head, and that is the most important thing. Usually in this type of duels, for representatives are sent, but as a boy, he is alone. Obviously he will do all the fights himself. The bald man is optimistic, saying that as they can use 4 people, still have a chance. All they need is to force him to take a step forward. Bayern motivates itself, telling himself that he may win. How they have accepted the morning. All you have to do is do. This guy takes a single step. No matter how strong a vampire is, the face has no defense. If you manage to connect the first shot, this guy will fall down. Then he will win the duel, will get an even better title, and perhaps even aspire to the position of emperor. Honor and money were there at hand. The announcer states that both have accepted the duel. You can dodge a blow out of fear, but if you lose balance and take a step, you are considered instant loser. Then announces that the one who accepted the challenge of mourning the male. As the first shot, Bear screams, saying that this punch is for fame and honor, and stamped on the vampire's head. The victorious happiness, saying it was strong enough, and it did really make Velvet's face shudder, who admits that the blow was strong. The announcer clarifies that Velvet did not move, did not turn back. So now it is your turn. Byron tries to say something, but then they go, is punched in the head with a cannon shot and comes out, spinning through the air. Velvet is instantly declared the winner. While everyone is wondering if Byron has just died, Patrick is hesitant, while the queen says she did not expect a lot anyway. He only has to win once. Following challengers are those who have already won duels like this one, so she is anxious to see what happens next. The second son of the Brun and Nicolau family. Brun takes a step forward. A huge guy. Where the hell was this legend when the hero invaded? Or when that vampire woman was slaughtering everyone? Even Velvet admits that Velvet does seem stronger, while Nicolau thinks this fight is not about strength, has to deal a vital blow to create panic, and then it will be easy to make move. And the best vital point, the beginning of the combat, is the tempo. The vampire really wobbles when it receives the blow, his head crooked to the left side. Looks excited, but the chapter cuts right there. Then the referee will declare Nicolau the winner, until they see that although the body of Velvet contorted did not move a single foot. Nicolau insists it does not make sense, his whole back turned, but the announcer says he did not move his foot, so no problem. Nicolau starts protesting, and then bam, another one also flies crashing to the ground. Les and the teacher wonders if he is also dead. Then the third representative goes ahead, Joseph Rumpler, and suddenly I get the idea. Could be the last duel. To be Reiner's daughter in reality is tall, muscular, made for this. Joseph says that the most important thing in a duel like this is to know your opponent's study patterns and habits, and now it is sure he knows how to win. Crucial weakness in Velvet's fighting style had been revealed. Smiles, saying he will show it, except that it did fly as well. We did not even see the shot he threw, or complains that it does not make sense. The lives of all in the city are being stationed in this way. Arian adds in a low voice that now all they can do is pray for the last representative to make a difference. She asks who it will be, and Velvet immediately questions why Gunter would be. His head is his chest, cannot simply deliver it. The queen replies that she never said she would wear her head, never mentioned not using Gunter himself, and like all that it has, Velvet is the head and not the body. Clearly the body counts as a larger part of Gunter, so it can be used also, as he swore in the name of if he wins the duel he keeps his head. Or are you afraid of to flee from this fight in a dishonorable manner? Gunter seems to have recovered his head, wondering what the hell is this one supposed to be called? Duel of honor, and he does not understand why that bastard even let him go. Alright, probably the vampire had covered ears all the time. From the bottom, the queen declares that this is a fight of honor, something that someone like him who lived such an insignificant life I could never understand. He just replies that he is not interested. Understand it anyway. The queen then says that if he wins this duel he will not execute the bald man. Of course I would have to win it honorably. Thanks him. And the queen simply orders them to be prepared. The duel would take place at the moment when the sun Gunter will begin to wear shortly thereafter is testing his new arm. Asking what this strange feeling is, Arian explains that this arm is 100% designed for trunk rotation, transferring the force to one blow, but must be careful because it was built full capacity in a hurry and can be easily broken. And the colors are a little weird because are the arms tires that were knocked down when Velvet crossed the bridge. The protagonist feels uncomfortable, saying it is strange to have pieces of each of them like this, but she tells him that he is actually amazing. After all, he himself said that the most important thing was to go on living. He should be used to it by now. Your body from the beginning, all its parts, was built through the deaths and sacrifices of others. Hearing this, Gunter calms down and is motivated again, and now they are face to face. As the announcer declares final duel of honor, Velvet aside is thinking intensely, did not expect to be in this situation. But I knew stupid Olivia would try something like that. Everything until now had been within their expectations. In addition to some of his many arms were clinging to the bones of his lower leg. What it meant that even if his entire body was thrown backward, his leg would basically remain planted. It was impossible for me to lose. Some would call it cowardice, but all I had to do now was to go on and watch how these fools fell. This was his revenge for what his father had done to him. Their thought dark ones are suddenly cut. Gunter flying straight at his head at full speed freezes without even processing it. I think he forgot that if his head explodes, his body shuts down, and bang, a clean blow causes his skull to fly out. Gunter asks if that means he moves. The guy's head was flying, but the referee announces that Velvet did not move a single foot, so the duel has not ended up punctuating. Flexes the arm, smiling because this duel is going to be a feast, as the vampire begins to recompose, admitting that it was dangerous, but saying that the game is over. No matter how hard I try, that idiot Olivia will never beat him in the end. But we go back. At the time they were implementing steel rods inside Gunter's mouth was to help him resist the blows. He said the taste was disgusting and weird, but Arian told him not to worry, that the duel would not last so long. In fact, it would end much sooner than I thought it would, so he had better win. When Velvet's punch lands squarely, Gunter wonders why he hears a metal screeching. The referee states that Gunter did not move a single step, so now it is your turn again. Gunter throws an uppercut, connecting fully in Velvet's jawline, and flying his head once again. The vampire shudders a little, but still not out of place, pulls himself together, grunting that Gunter is a bastard, and punches him to death. Patrick asks the queen, is she really really believes that Gunter can win and she seems to insecure the head of. Velvet flies away again and almost takes a step back. Realizes that this is getting dangerous. That weird ass was much stronger than I imagined. Your whole body pushed back by a simple blow to the head. Velvet attempt find paradise, right to throw your own punches, but strangely feels he is not doing any real harm. The word defeat floats in his mind. It's true. I could not lose against this filthy woman, unworthy of any title. With a twisted expression he shouts to stop laughing. He was the only vessel worthy of becoming king. Only he is the only one truly worthy of that position. Gunter chews steel rods in his mouth, murmuring that he does not care. Alice sinks deeper into madness, ranting that the woman's father stole everything from her, and as if that was not enough, even cut off his arms, preventing me from trying again. Gunter, it only says that the family of this type is completely crazy. Velvet rebuilds another arm, stating that he will prove that fakes never win, and goes for another punch, but this time Gunter dodges, stunned, and Gunter counterattacks with a straight goal into the Colombian. Everyone is dumbfounded. The queen is speechless while Velvet flies up, stumbles up, screaming that the bastard dodged and threw all his honor at the Gunter. Replies that if he dies, is fighting with a lot of guys glued to the back. What right do you have to speak of honor besides only? Continued with this because of the bald man. But now he is tired. Velvet tries restore his arm but realizes he can't. Just as Gunter had done with Evelyn in the circle, had damaged Velvet's heart, making complete regeneration impossible. At that moment Gunter grabs it, neck in memory, and says that the real fight is about to begin. But again, Velvet insists that on behalf of his noble family has another proposal. Gunter's answer is to send him to hell and blow his head off again. Probably at the time Gunter saw Velvet buy 15 arms into one, he gave up on playing. Clean for him comes first. The queen, however, obviously wants to know why he dodged. Even if he died, even if humanity, Parisiera could not act like this as long as represented the royal family, she screams, desperate that he is a bastard. But Patrick tells you to calm down. Really saw him dodge. He says that what really happened was that Gunter was punched head on, and with the fourth blow he spoke with Velvet. All others, no doubt if that fourth punch was solid, also held up well on the third one. Patrick even rewrites the record, ripping off the old page and scribbling. After Gunter received the third punch, counterattacked with the fourth and finished off the vampire. Patrick says that is the perfect result, then turns around and declares that yes, that is the truth now. The still confused queen murmurs that she was apparently the one who spoke with honor, and the nod telling him to keep his honor intact. And there she is smiling like a fool, celebrating by saying that victory is theirs all, honoring the great queen. Mientras tanto, Gunter continues to smash Velvet to the ground, the vampire begging him to stop and ask how much longer will follow. Hitting someone without arms, does he not feel pity for a defenseless enemy? Gunter responds calmly that will simply continue to strike until dawn, nothing more, nothing less. Desperate, Velvet begs me to wait a moment, says it has a proposal, just wants the kid to listen. But Gunter almost sunk his face again, until Velvet suddenly releases the name Julius, the last pureblood vampire. He knows that everyone must be looking for him, and Velvet says he knows where July is hiding. If you forgive him, you can guide them there, because once Julius dies, they will not have to fight any more vampires. Humanity would be victorious. Gunter says he is not an idiot. Julius was Belvet. Also came out, so there is no way I could do that. The vampire explains that Gunter does not understand how vampire promises work. I swear to Julius that I would hand over the immortal angel. That means that what between the two is not your responsibility, in which it is a big deal for Gunter. Gunter makes a pause, saying it is temp, but how about receiving? Few more strokes before dawn. Velvet screams, and with that, the sun is already up. Arian insists, wanting to know if he will really guide you through July. Chain Velvet says yes, but in truth his plan is to bring to the immortal paradise straight to Julius. All he asks is to be treated like the last real one, sobreviviente. All chains and shackles should be removed because it is dishonorable. Protagonist mocks, saying that this bastard dares to speak of honor after all he has done. Sounds like he is begging for another beating. Shrinks at the sight of raised fists, then decides to shut his mouth. Arian says she can't trust him. After all, if Julius Velvet also won, so that promise does not even make sense. What he really wants to know is, if Velvet did not want to destroy humanity, why he became a vampire, Thor being the face in a strange way the flame to a very attractive girl. But it is a pity that has always kept so many secrets. Gunter just raises his arm, saying that clearly is playing with words and deserves another hit. Velvet tells him to stop the threats, insisting that all he wants is to forgive him in exchange for taking them to Julius. That is the deal. Later, walking through the corridors, Arian says it would be a great advantage to know where Julius is and to finish him off. The only problem is that before that, there is a lot to prepare. And just then his nose starts to bleed. Not only bleeding but a mixture of purple and red, and begins to collapse on the ground. We had forgotten what was said in the first chapter. She is a living battery, which means that its life force is being drained. The others run to carry her all over her reddened body. Can barely breathe, its temperature is scorching, and strange marks cover his skin. Is then when Gunter note that it has a mass of implants along the back. He asks what that is, and the bald guy explains what is the result. To have become a human generator, cocktail of drugs, potions, and all kinds of substance were pumped into his body. Those devices on your back work to detoxify the damage caused by these drugs, which allows the energy to flows through the transmitter and its reflections and organs are all compressed by radiation. The only thing you can eat are certain types of Gunter soup. Murmurs that the fact that she is still alive is already a failure. Reiner adds that this is why Aryan is unique. No normal person could have survived all this, and yet he endured days and nights in that body. Yet Gunter wants to know, because Heed and the bald man will recover. Says they first need understand the source of body heat. What exactly is happening? Then asks Gunter if he is worried about her. Gunter shouts that not at all. Worries him because if she dies, he dies too. Bald man notices immediately that he does not really care about her. One of the plague doctors reports that his pulse finally returned to normal, but they still do not know the cause of the collapse, and all they can do is wait and observe. Mientras tanto, Gunter is there, connected, saying that there is a problem. He knows he is unconscious, but the bar on his arm is not going up. The bald man tells him that he should, ashamed to connect with someone who is unconscious. June replies abruptly that there is no way, and if she dies suddenly, that is when the bald man explains that, like him, he has to be working at high efficiency so that the transmission works. The worse, when your body is weaker, it becomes the exit, until it is eventually turned off completely. The protagonist asks if there is no way for him to charge himself, and the bald man admits that for now there is no such thing as. The only advantage is that the bar is not lowering, which means that Gunter will have to remain connect 100% with her just to stay alive. Bald man warns that he is not even sure that this is possible, that if your condition worsens a little and he keeps draining energy, battery could drop to zero even when connect. Gunter murmurs that this is a worse death than fighting vampires. The bald man agrees that since Gunter cannot leave, you better stay and care for her while others mobilize to find another solution. Pointer has no other option, is trapped next to him just watching. At every moment the counter on his arm showed less than an hour of life. Notices that she, moaning soaked in sweat, is clearly in unbearable pain. He is told to use a cloth to clean his sweat, but complains that it is a nuisance. Yet he notices his face so small, his nose, his mouth, even his hands were tiny, and yet he endured the agony of having the organs twisted and the whole body modified. Simply cannot understand why he is going through all that. At that time, open the door with more water and see Gunter holding Aryan's hand makes up for interrupting a romantic moment. He screams that Audrey was just cleaning his sweat, tells you to enjoy his time, and suddenly closes the door. Desperate, he screams for him to come back. Vero night falls and he is still there cleaning up the sweat. Wonders aloud if she, who always acted so strongly, as if nothing would affect her, is really going to pass out next to him like this. Sits there watching her as the hours go by, and then remember his words that I expected to see him tomorrow. Gunter turns yellow. Put your hands together, the sight, and admits that of all, she is the only one he also wanted to see tomorrow. Then the sun comes out and panics. I had prayed, cleaned his sweat all night but still not awake. Worse, even connect. Timer on his arm is lowering. Reiner ended up saying that they can't waste any more time. We'll have to go with the last option. Gunter demands an explanation and Reiner tells him that the human generator of Aryan can no longer work before it is completely turned off. We'll mobilize everyone to create a new one, loaded while warned to handle it with care. Gunter follows closely until they stop in front of a tombstone covered with names. He asks what Reiner is, explains, which is the list of all those who sacrificed themselves, managed to become a generator and failed. Gunter curses, saying she is a princess, that so many people died just to have their unknown names in a forgotten place. The bald man explains that not everyone trusted the plan. At that time, two plague doctors enter, that the test is ready and the candidate prepared. Gunter immediately protests, saying that with just one it is impossible. There is no way it will work. Vero Reiner says they do not have enough materials. There is only what is necessary to attempt it with a person. Gunter frowns, saying he is, that only one person has volunteered. Who is the idiot this time? And indeed, from the beginning of the discourse, Gunter already knows. Reiner admits that his whole life has been hesitant, just like when he could not kill that vampire. Time and time again he made the wrong decision because he never had the determination and is tired of running away, so he wants to protect Sanchez. So this time he will do what he has to do. Will be who becomes a human generator to save Gunter, and it seems that our boy just accepted because the bald man was already prepared, saying that creating a generator human has not been around that long. Even if it does not work 100%, the moment everything is installed, I could still get some energy out of it. Gunter asks what if it does not work at all. Cleaner, just tell him not to worry, everything will be fine. Doctors take it, saying that the operation is about to be restarted. While being driven, Reiner asks Gunter, please keep all this a secret for the U.S. Next scene, his veins and fingernails are turning blue and scratches himself, writhing in pain on the table. Gunter demands to know what is going on, and the others explain that it is an absolute success. The first operation worked and will now move on to the second one. Gunter murmurs, well, it is not over yet. Asks the bald guy how it feels to be a blue bald guy. Reiner replies that it is terrible. At least the first phase was only 50% success, and as he is still alive, that counts as a good result. The protagonist praises it, telling him to maintain this positive attitude. Reiner then wants to know how much energy he has. Looks at his wrist and says not much, just a flash. Intends to join, saying he has something to confess. While still conscious, Gunter grunts, who does not want to hear secrets of the fact of death. But Reiner continues anyway. Is not his biological daughter. Gunter is surprised to say that this explains why they seem so different. But if it is not his, where did Reiner come from? Explains that he had abandoned by the mercenaries with whom he passed all his life. After losing it all, he lived in the streets, and what really broke it was not losing material things, but to be be betrayed by the people he had considered his family, left to die in the street until someone offered him a piece of bread. That person was conceived. Remembers his dirty little hand holding out half his bread to him. She had also been abandoned by her parent. Thanks them because it meant that he was able to become her father as well as they abandoned it, and was able to rebuild his life thanks to hopes that in this cruel and relentless world. Eventually, she also finds someone who can heal his wounds. Gunter gets serious about it. Doctors enter and announce that the second operation is about to begin. Camilla is pushed into a room with strange tools and bubbling vats, while Reiner screams in pain from a distance, is by a window as if he feels some. Gunter, still connected to Arian, says that in this world, nothing is more valuable than staying alive. Its energy runs out and goes out, and then, oh no, the scene changes to the tombstone. Someone arrives and carves a new name. Reiner, 12 days, 5 hours and 4 minutes. That was the time it lasted as a human battery. Officially registered as a suspect, but still managed to provide power for 12 days. Some called him a hero. Others said it was pure willpower. And on the 11th night another suicide occurred. Arian suddenly woke up from his deep coma, was severely weakened, but the next day could now function again as a generator. At the time Reiner saw her standing up, her own health collapsed even faster. Perhaps at that moment he was finally relieved. Lying in bed, tells his daughter that he never imagined that he would live, could be as painful, but still in this cruel and relentless world. She had arrived to him and had become his life. Thanks her daughter who smiles at her, and memories flood his mind. The little bonfire, his words, she cleaning his bald head, them dancing, and at the end he tells her that she was always too beautiful. Then literally here comes the worst part of it all. Did not even cry when he saw him die, said it had been his choice, and that in the end it was thanks to his father that Gunter had remained alive until Arian woke up. Said she would have done the same, but of course later that night in the house he was heard crying. The next day, Gunter is next to Arian, asking if they will finally leave tomorrow to kill Julius. Been going on a lot. She replies that they are out of time and that Velvet warned that it would take several weeks to reach him. Gunter comments that finally everything is about to end, but she seems strangely calm. Had not only been on the verge of death, but the bald man had also died. She closes the book in his hands and says it would never have started. None of this if I had not been prepared. Gunter nods, saying he understands. It is still good to see his face again. Only warns her, do not let her suddenly again. She laughs, and a little later, he is lying on the bed while she sits down in silence beside him looking at the door. Someone was about to enter, but suddenly, Gunter already had his sword in the intruder's throat, demanding to know why the queen's lackey was there at that time. The man laughs, saying that Gunter, he really is a tough guy, but assures him not to worry, is not there on the queen's orders. Came to offer your condolences, and to say that he also owed a lot to the captain. Pure Gunter glares at it with her eyes, noting that it acts very different when it is close to the queen. The man replies that people are defined by the positions in which they are located, and that he will take that as a compliment. Heard that they are leaving tomorrow, but before Gunter go away there is someone who desperately wants to see him. Gunter says he will awaken Arian to go together, but the man responds that no one else can accompany him on AIM. Explains to you about the timer you need to stay on, close to it so that its battery does not discharge. Was this meeting really more important than saving humanity? Patrick replies that yes, the person who wants to seeing it is more important than the future of humanity. He is humanity itself, and history itself is the king of kings. The of humanity does Gunter not feel. Continues, for what really happened between humans and vampires? If he goes now he will learn everything. As they go down some stairs, Gunter grunts about this Rey de Reyes. How many kings this nation had. Seems to run into more people who call themselves king that with normal people. Patrick tells him to calm down, ensuring that this person is different, which is really the real thing. King who once ruled mankind was the very embodiment of the truth. Gunter asks if Patrick does not adore the queen. Patrick laughs and asks him if you really believe that she looks like someone capable of leading anyone. Gunter calls him a funny bastard, and Patrick thanks him. Arrive at a luxurious but half-fed place, and Gunter remembers that it looks like to the sustained structure by pillars he saw during the battle. Wants to know why they are there. Patrick explains that this place is far below, a site that technically does not exist in history, built with expensive onyx marble and endless jewelry. Air circulation was so perfect that no one would notice that it was underground. They even had fresh water. There were enough rooms for them to live. Hundreds of servants indeed. The entire city known as Altal was built to serve this place. Gunter demands to know exactly what this site is. Patrick explains that it was where the kings of the past were going before they died, a place where they could live eternal lives. His name was the Castle of the Kings. Gunter still does not understand, saying that none of this makes sense. Patrick only tells him to paint. Advance through more corridors and Gunter sees strange paintings, scenes that seem to transform of vampires until finally, in one of the rooms, comes face to face with a guillotine, a huge blade fixed in its place. Patrick says that Julius belonged to this place. Gunter asks if that is the pure blood blood vampire? And Patrick explains that yes, being that survives only with pure human blood, burned by sunlight, and dead only if the heart is destroyed. For vampires, blood was the source of strength and power, but pure-blooded vampires were creatures that had existed from the beginning, and they did not even need to drink blood, could live eternally consuming any wonderful nobles, beings that until then existed only in mythology, but eventually discovered something incredible about that pure blood. Just as human blood gave strength to vampires, blood of a pure blood could give strength to a human. Gunter does not understand, and Patrick explains that he does, that his pure blood could provide youth and extend human life. Basically, one could live forever if one continued drinking it. Gunter asks if everyone in that place survived from that. Patrick explains that not only a few, the king and a handful of servants have been selected for him because the blood of a pure blood was like a mirage. The moment he left the body had, so to have fresh blood available, needed one per two to obtain it at any time. Julius was imprisoned there and constantly decapitated so that it would not remain conscious. Supplied blood to humans for 950 years. Gunter murmurs that now he does not even know who is the real hero. Patrick says it was all worth. Thanks to Julius, humanity entered its greatest era of prosperity. The royal family exerts influence on politics and administration, and any king of the earth, as he approached death he was sent to that place, was judged by the kings below who decided if his life was enough, valuable enough to be made eternal. Upon learning of this judgment, every king tried in creating the best kingdom possible and achieve immortality. The one who created this process was Hound, the first of all kings. Gunter mocks, saying that first and foremost, that royal family lost its mind. Second, someone really ruined everything, as clearly his plan did not last forever. Wants to know what happened. Patrick explained. It was 41 years ago, when a human confronted Julius, freed him and escaped with him. Gunter praises him. Finally a human with a conscience, but Patrick denies with his head, saying it makes no sense. Awareness, that is exactly what I did not have. Just imagine the suffering. Ed by the freedom he gave to that vampire. Of course, at the time when Julius gone, that subway city began to collapse. The source of eternal life was cut off, and the people there aged decades at once. All died grotesque deaths one after the other. Began with the first king, and shortly thereafter also died the second, named Browse. Everyone's last hope, the one who had dedicated thousands of years to humanity, the true king of kings, was still alive. And now it was time for Gunter to face to face with the very history of mankind. Inside a room full of books, someone says he has been watching it for a long time. Born of death, endlessly longing for life, alive but not completely, dead but not quite either, existing right on the line between life and death. The so-called of death welcomes you to his palace. Protagonist immediately releases that this weirdo is ugly as the devil, to which the guy replies that I could say the same about him. Our boy is now curious. What is the point of being watched for so long? For someone who is supposed to be a great king, seems to lead a pretty quiet life. The king explains that he is not only watching him, continues everyone's life. When they were born, who raised them, what kind of lives had, and how those lives ended. That is its power. Know and understand everything within this. Gunter realm tells him directly that he is a degenerate. And then I understand. If you already know everything, why you want to see it? With that strange expression on his face, the king takes a book and says, this is Isabella's story. Hunt in his life. She was a woman who was about to become the great queen of this kingdom, but the throne, and chose to flee with Julius. The book is still, and one of my greatest wishes is to complete it. That is why I want you to ask Julio about her. What promised him that he would want to destroy humanity. Gunter simply shrugs his shoulders, saying that it is no mystery to him that the guy probably wants to wipe out humanity after his head was cut off for 950 years. But the king explains that blood vampires pure do not feel hatred. For someone like Julius, 900 years is not even that long. The real reason why he wants to killing humanity is for a promise he made to Isabella. Hound shed eternal life in the throne. Just to tell you something what that was, the king still does not know. What he is interested in is to see what choice Gunter makes, whether you decide to live or die. Can continue as a human or as an angel, could even pursue eternal life, and as he loves it, that is something that awakens the king's curiosity. Gunter does not respond. The truth is that until now, has always been quite questionable when survival was at stake. But here we are, golden sword laden weapon unsheathed to Arian, says the time has come, and he just asks if he has been sleeping well. She says she does, thank him, and he just tells the damn girl that. Snore a little lower, blushing, ignores the mockery and mentions that velvet goes with them, which means that Julius will know your location at any time. Gunter sees it as an Arian double-edged weapon. Also points out, the moment they leave this hole, every fly out there will begin to hunt them. Risky of course, but better than converting this place on a while still inside. And with that, they are already on the bridge. When someone calls Gunter, it is magical. Apparently joining them as well is all a clear sign that he is going to die. Who cut her hair, and she says she just wanted to. A small change. To him it looks exactly the same, but good unfortunately, for someone who does not normally care. For others, our protagonist is paying close attention. Ask how is doing, and she explains that she has obviously been avoiding it in the mansion. When he goes to check, the guy is screaming, saying he is crazy about treating that way, but Gunter only shows his fist, and the man immediately shuts up. Doctors then say it is time to leave. The carriage begins to advance while Gunter remembers the king's words to live and die, to remain a hero or to pursue immortality. He was curious about all that. With a little laugh, go ahead. While from one of the towers, far away, the queen Queen observes before turning around. At the same time, Julius waits quietly at home. As always, to the two on the way. One step forward and we move on to the next chapter, where someone is already screaming, wanting to know what this 582 kilometers is all about. Velvet says that is the distance they are from Julius. The protagonist responds, what kind of is that? These vampires do not know how to set up bases in accessible location. And not to mention that this carriage will travel what? 50 kilometers in total. This rate will arrive in a month. That bastard Julius does not know they are after him. Why does not run so well in their direction and gives them a hand? Velvet replies that he said Julius should run, but in truth he simply does not understand the complexity of a pure-blooded vampire. Has always been in the same place, except for that time he killed the king, and there he will remain. The protagonist wants to know if there is any treasure there or something similar. Velvet tells him no, that it is where Isabella is. Hunt was buried. That immediately clicks on Gunter. That is the one the king won, the one that released July from that place. At the same time, another girl clings to him, clearly exhausted. The journey has just begun and she is already asleep. Someone else points it out, saying that something beautiful is happening. He tells her to leave him since the poor girl simply moves his head away from him. Suddenly the horse jumps and dies, bangs her back against the crooked wall. But once again he sees Gunter protecting Arian. He murmured that he had to protect her, that if she died, he was dying. Sometime later, the driver warns them to look at the front. Place is covered with countless corpses. Pile of dead bodies. Tells them to stand back. As they approach, the smell of blood becomes intense and is fresh. But the strangest thing is that the bodies do not have bites and cut. Crushed Gunter warns everyone to stay alert because there is a vampire nearby. Also says up usable bodies. Maybe they can make a weapon for him. That is when you also notice something strange. All angels have no hand. From inside the velvet carriage, says it will now become fun since they have entered the domain of that person. She asks who's and he explains that among high-ranking vampires, there are two weird and crazy. One of them is the Nash without hands, a disgusting former slave everyone hated dealing with, but something was undeniable. Had a real talent for killing Velvet. Wants to see how many of them survive this fight. And do not forget that they still have 582 kilometers to go. Is confident that this path towards Julius will not be easy. We'll have to avoid fights as much as possible. And one of the most important things, as it says, Arian is to protect the amazing black carriage. Is basically a simplified basal laboratory. Medicine parts of Gunter's weapons. Can manufacture anything in there. Gunter must obviously remain intact. However, he says that the real priority is her, not the carriage. And as always, is there watching all this romance unfold. The protagonist thanks him. Anyway, which is easier? Protect this little carriage I carry to an entire army. At that time, someone points out thing is designed to survive. Shockwave. When suddenly someone screams in ambush as he looks on. Back a plague doctor runs to warn them that a vampire is approaching. Gunter is already moving towards him, but they stop, telling others to be prepared. From afar another carriage comes flying, crashing into them from behind. And just after that something else falls and destroys everything at the sight of it. Gunter wonders what the hell vampire that was. Looked like a giant hand. And there he was standing on all his fingers saying 30. That was today's goal, I had to reach 30. Gunter can only think about how disgusting the creature is. Black hair. At least it means he is a low-class vampire. Immediately concentrates because the thing comes to him by 5 or 6 hands and murmurs that there are countless ways to kill something so weak. Cut first to the fingers while the guy comments that its strength feels strange, as if it were not human. But no one can hurt this body that Dash has given him until the sword goes through, cutting off the hand and tearing both at the same time. But another fist comes from the side and throws it away. The creature magically begins to celebrate, bragging that he already has 2 for today. The celebration is interrupted when Gunter gets close in a sec, realizes that these bastards are like a human hand. Problem is that they are huge. Then see 3 of them heading towards the damn carriage. Horses run full speed, the driver shouting that they go faster because the more you are approaching. From behind another one goes down to crush it. Gunter is there again, cutting through. He asks how many vampires are there, and someone answers that about 30. Watching the guy holding a Gunter cross asshole really is, thinks that thing is going to kill vampires. If he really wants to live, he should drop that gun and take a steel chain instead. One of the plague doctors begs for mercy, but his head is crushed by one of those giant hands, and the creepy vampire, using his huge thumb, grabs the man's tiny hand and announces that this is the 12th of the day. Still far from its goal. Looks sideways, see the carriage passing by and orders everyone to follow him. Fingers run down the side. Others come from different angles while Gunter cuts in all directions, grabs some chains, damn it, and spins them, destroying everything. At the same time it remains anchored to the carriage, is pushed forward, dodges another blow, rolls the chain on his arm, uses it to launch itself forward, cutting to 3, maybe 4 more in a flash. Doctors inside are stunned that someone may cause such destruction only with a chain. He really is a hero. Think this is going to be easy, and suddenly someone is torn away. Is right there when it appears. It is only a stone thrown through the window. The hell? Bastard declares that the next one is coming. The shot is launched. Gunter sees him heading straight for the carriage, tries to intercept it, swings his sword against the stone, but blood explodes. Following chapter opens with the same moment. His cut failed, and damn it, the horses were torn apart by half. When the first one collapsed, the others stumbled, forcing the carriage to stop. He asks quickly if everyone inside is fine and answers yes. The problem is that obvious. The horses are gone, so they are screwed. Another shot almost hits Gunter as he pulls away. Watching the bastard bastards up there in the mountains. The group tries to, lifting the horses, again, but he knows there is no time. The only option is to send everything rolling downhill. The people inside are screaming, demanding to know what they plan to do, asking if he is about to throw them all down the mountain. He just says yes, and tells them to hold on then, pushes hard, jumps on them and they throw themselves, crashing at full speed. Poor Aryan drools everywhere while he murmurs that this trip is much faster than I expect. The real problem, a huge rock is just ahead. A doctor shouts that everyone is going to die. Gunter told him to calm down, leans to one side, hits with the foot foreign, barely avoided, brushing the edge, but then everything climbs up the slope and everyone screams in a panic. Is then when sees a bridge just to the side. The idea is obvious, that damn thing in cut path of vampires. Before they can reach them, the problem was that they were flying off cliff at full speed, and no one was going to survive that. Aryan of course screams his name again, begging him to stop. This while our boy is like mad, pulling the chains to try to stop the uncontrolled journey. There was obviously no way he could really make it. Everyone was about to die. No, although knowing this story really likes to kill characters, but somehow they stop right at the edge. Almost so there it is, calling everyone back with the chains. Was about to say that everyone inside was lazy, but not all of them are in the back help. Is then when one of the doctors warns them that appearances, handymen are rushing in desperate fashion. At least 2 fingers carry. At least they manage. Fight or the fight starts. And now it is time to tear down the bridge. Gunter runs forward, sinks his sword into a pillar, then in another, but somehow the bridge resists. The pillars must be anchored deep on earth to someone. Shouts to him to destroy the earth together with them. Problem is that his energy is running out, and this would have to be solved with one last blow. Stretch your arm. Creatures charge across the bridge and he hits. The ground all collapses. The stairs. Handcuffs fall into the water by the current. Aryan calls him immediately, but he insists, there is no way in hell for me to die here. And thence the remaining hand crawl out of the forest, and those made of that blood. Special burns, leaving only the one who controlled them. Retreat to a cave carrying some fists, and report directly to Nash's lord. He says it was a decent job, because no one seems to have met the quota today, and we can already see what it is. A disgusting ex-slave whose hands were cut off. There is no way it was not unfair and cruel. Now wants an army of hands for revenge. The subordinate apologizes, explaining that an Argentine half-heart got in the way, lost many comrades, failed to achieve the goal. Dinesh demands to know what is that, how it happened. To fail with the bodies they had been given, for not meeting the objective. Each of them will pay with his or her life. The vampire begs for forgiveness while Dinesh declares he will take all his pants with him. Poor hanging from the fund are sobbing, promising to double the quota next time. But suddenly, Dinesh starts murmuring, saying something about his fist. I have no idea what it means, but ask. The guy is sure. The man swears that Dinesh saw it, thanks him and says that this time they will be forgiven. Everyone falls to their knees, euphoric for living another day, drooling in his madness. Nash asks what the mission will be next time. He looks at one hand and his expression changes. Declares 10,000. Apparently the hand itself takes the mission. I do not quite understand it, but eventually, this story unites everything. At least it never lets loose ends. Back with the carriages, the group advances along the edge of the forest. The protagonist gives Velvet a blow, asking him if he is okay. Velvet only replies 578 kilometers to go at this rate. Unless they fall into a portal, it will never happen. After all that, mountain descent at crazy speed. Only 4 kilometers. Ariane has been covered at least. Is grateful that they have protected the carriage, but Velvet, from the inside, says he doubts it. At this rate they will not even reach 100 kilometers. Will have to demand much more. If the head of the Angel of Death will remain calm. He laughs like a psychopath, unhinged, while Gunter admits that he is. But the bastard is telling the truth. At this rate there is no way for them to survive 100 kilometers. Horses are the biggest problem, are incredibly vulnerable and die too easily. And that is when offers the strangest thing. Have many corpses. So why the hell do they want to make a horse? Well, not to build one from scratch, right? It seems that they want to turn Gunter on a horse, and he definitely is not at all happy about it. Strangely, Aryan admits that it is true. Turn him into a great stud would make things much easier. The problem is obviously how long it takes to achieve this. Telling him to relax, that she will be in charge quickly. Seriously, no one is going to ask the poor guy if he even wants to turn into a horse. The poor guy. Holiday is about to turn into a disaster, looking like a centaur. As they advance at 5 kilometers per hour, the British little hands are thrown, desperate to find that guy and meet their quota, are about to collide again, although technically from behind this time, as Thess approach from the rear. Gunter is half modified now with weird stuff, steel rods embedded in it everywhere. He tells to hurry up, but she insists that he is already doing the best he can, trying to finish as quickly as possible. Suddenly one of the hands jumps, screaming for 10,000 fists aimed at Gunter. He looks back at her, and I do not even know what happened, blocked him, or lifted a huge horse kick. Even the devil is surprised, asking what the hell was that. The thing is crushed and trampled to the point of flatness. Damn, those are horse legs. Really muscular. The design is crazy in a Gunter. In fact, he is liking it, saying that with this he feels he can raise everything to the ground. Aryan is about to tell him to buy time, but instead sees it, running like crazy, cutting everything, demanding to know who has been talking about killing him, crushes the face of one of the creatures with that huge horse helmet, turns and almost kills Arian by accident. She yells at him to watch her side. Tempers are already fleeing in terror. Shout that there is a boy here asking for help. Gunter wonders aloud if it really looks that horrible. This whole damn mess was too tedious. Time to get back on the road. But just when Arian is about to say that perhaps today things stay calm, a strange roar resounds. Nash is nearby, murmuring that 10,000 is really a lot, that they are only making themselves worse by attempting to flee. Turns to one of his followers, asks what the quota is, and then goes through an arm straight through it, adding that he will take his heart as a bonus. Gunter wastes no time and is already on top of him in a second, the blow of his sword almost reaching the guy's eye. But before that we saw him asking Velvet why this madman collects fists. Velvet explained that it was not mystical at all to come from of a male in some rural area that forced slaves to work on a peculiar plantation. If they did not reach the quota, I would cut off their hands. It did not matter if they were children, women, men. They all died at that time. Velvet swears that if he had been king, something like this would never have happened, but Nesh is the kind of twisted person who whispers corruption in children's ears. He looks to that hand to be dinner, as if listening to a disturbing voice. Velvet always wondered who it belonged to. Originally that strange hand, and then Gunter's hit. The one who almost connected is stopped by a sword. Inish mocks, saying he can't end up like this. Slaves are no longer here. Then throws a punch at Gunter's chest, stating that now it is your turn to resolve this. A vampiric energy stranger begins to swirl around her body, transforming it into a kind of megazord, grotesque, covered with giant hand. Warns that today he will take Gunter's hand and fist with him. It is time to dance. Gunter responds boldly that many have tried to kill him, but none of them has made it, has faced much stronger enemies and has survived. Forward charge swordless Dinesh simply states that today will be the boy's first death, crashing a huge fist towards him. But the next chapter opens with Arian saying that vampire blood. Gunter has almost a will of his own, realizes that they are like tools with awareness, and she explains that this is why they become stronger when pain and willpower also grow. Then asks what kind of pain would cause the greatest suffering to an isolated human being. Says he will probably be burned alive, must be one of the worst. Perhaps also to be left without absolutely no hope in life would be unbearable. And apparently this is when Reiner was still alive, because he says he once heard a scream, a cry that did not sound human at all, did not come from the parish. It was as if it came from the depths of my heart. Something animal was coming, of a mother who had just of losing his child in an accident. All three remain silent, and he says it made him think again that perhaps the most painful thing for a human being is the heart of a father, one who was forced to see a son die. Yes, and of course, Dutch Hans saw his own son lose hands and die right in front of him. That kind of thing can really turn anyone into a villain. And now here he is using to the last drop of his strength to shatter Gunter's arm. Gunter, of course, realizes that it is not going to be as simple. Anesh seems almost disappointed, saying that Gunter destroyed the fist but had to take how it is supposed to meet its quota now. Needs to control your legs better. But in the midst of his thinking, Gunter interrupts him with a horse kick. Stamp it, then another hit and another one and another one. Kid is performing a complete combo of mortal combat and yet the remains intact, asking if that is really all the anger he has. The protagonist does not understand, as this creature has not hesitated for a second, has not even. Strangely, as Dante approaches, Gunter feels something disturbing, knows that no enemy dies of weakness, but for some reason he is intimidated. Deep down he knows he can't win against this guy. That is when someone screams from behind, telling him that they have finished packing everything, that there is no reason for her to keep fighting, and he looks at her, remembering who has always been the one who chooses survival above anything else. With horse legs runs faster than anyone else, sprinting at full speed, but of course, and attacks his chest opening. From afar Dinesh shouts that he still has 10,000 fists to collect. So where do you believe? Gunter going, then bam, seems to have hit him in the head. Blood runs, and wonders if he really hit him in the face. How exactly did it reach? There is an eye on the ground. Only half of his head was torn off. The brain is still intact. Problem is that his other eye is swollen and closed, leaving the blind at the front. You can feel something charging towards him, but there is no way he could die, so he jumps, shouting that no one is capable of killing him and throwing a blow back. But in reality he does not even know what he is aiming for. And so begins the next chapter, because every time something happens the story turns. Now we see Gunter in a pool of blood surrounded by corpses. Fallen man asks why the child is still fighting. Killing or dying does not change anything in your life then. Why fight so hard to flee from death? Does he really believe that one day he will find a place to which it belongs? Or maybe it clings to the illusion that there is some form of to take revenge on his parents who abandoned him in the parish. Gunter yells at him to shut up, but the man just says he is a whiny kid who has never felt love. There is no place for him in this world. No matter how hard I try, no one has ever wanted him. With that, Gunter hits him and we return to the moment of impact. His attack almost hits someone who screams, grabs him and tells him that he does not need to fight anymore. He stays confused, wondering how he can to stay alive like this when he cannot see. She tells him it will be her eyes, climbs on his back, and together charge forward at full speed. The danger, however, is that the stones forward, they could go through it, and if that happens she would also suffer. See, but when the first one comes, she yells at him to bend down and they dodge once again. Then the Nesh jumps and almost crushed them right there. They run in panic. Gunter Gunter does not understand what the hell this fight is, how it is supposed to predict something when you can't see anything. Wonders if this is perhaps how he will die, without understanding a single thing of what is going on around it. Perhaps this was the horrible death I had always been waiting for, but someone grabs him by telling him he is not here this time. You just have nothing to worry about. She tells him to dodge to the left, and he simply follows his words by moving forward blindly. She warns that the carriage is 5 m to the left, that only needs go a little further and plant your foot forward. He screams desperately, and from Dinesh's perspective, are already far away in the distance fleeing. Dinesh murmurs that the bastard is really elusive, and now it is complicated. Needs 10,000 fists to meet its quota. Is still okay. Will chase it every night until it wears them out. In the end, he will be the one to kill him. The scene changes the next day. Finally stop to rest a little and check their supplies. O asks what is the next part of the plan, because unfortunately, the boy's head is still open. Gunter, however, he says to let the Aryan who hate, and then asks the question, how the hell someone's head is. I had never thought about it before, but it is possible, is not it? Of course, the whole damn body is already cooked. That is what you ask. Can my eyes fix? I can't fight like this. She tells him something she needs to know. Fortunately, his brain was not damaged at all, so they just need to put on a new cover. Your face will be fine. The only real problem is the eye. And effectively, when he looks around, all are distorted with huge heads. Murmur that something is wrong, that they all look like big heads. Someone explains that the eye is the most complex part of oxygen in your body, and that in a hurry this was the best thing they could do. He yells at her to walk away, saying it looks like a balloon, and she explains that her right eye closed without operating, because it was so complex that they had to give up. Specifically, connections are almost impossible. Too many nerves, too tiny, and with the tools rudimentary they have, there is no way to get it right. Gunter demands to know how he is supposed to fight like this. Even suggests, take someone else's eye and put it in someone else's face. Says they may have some eyes to spare, who will try their best. She asks him if he can see with the one she was given, and he replies that not at all. Try another. It looks like it belongs to a vampire, but things spin intensively. Insert another one, and he says he now sees 8 of everything. Another nothing, another still nothing. She admits that they have already been tested. All and none work. The real problem is that if they continue to linger there, the Nesh will reach them better to follow. Moving forward and attempting to find a new eye on the road, so they continue. But even a rabbit jumping nearby almost tripped him. Some stones fall next to him and he panics. Someone explained to him that it is only a small slope. Falling rocks, nothing to fear. She promises to warn him, yet he does not understand why he looks so altered. He explains from the moment he was born, was surrounded by people who wanted to see him dead. I could barely sleep, always afraid of a knife in the back. For someone who has spent his whole life alert, watching every place, every moment, losing vision, feels like everyone wants to kill him, can still see as clear as day. The only person who wanted see him dead more than anyone else, the one who brought him into this world, and the first to wish his death, takes a hand to his face, and someone takes it by telling her to calm down. Your vision will return soon, but until then, can trust her. That will not let darkness come near. She says she can trust her. He replies that he will try, and so look at this romance. I do not know if I like romance in this story, because I am sure everyone is going to die in themselves. In other words, it will be more tragedy than romance. Then Aryan mentions that there is a river ahead, and when Gunter puts on his helmet, he removes it immediately. A little later, to jump branches, and both fall face down straight into manure. Continue to advance through night tires, daytime forests, even snow, always side by side with intertwined hands. Once again he is startled, and she reassures him, just another rabbit. She looks up and says that the night sky looks beautiful, like pearls scattered across the Black Sea. He replies that perhaps is really beautiful as long as closely observes the two. That is when calls Gunter, saying that he has to ask, who can no longer keep his attitude towards Aryan seems to have changed, and indeed it goes straight to the point where you like Aryan. He stops to think and suddenly clearly lets out a confused cry. Gunter does not even know what it means to like someone. All his life he has only killed, and they have wanted to kill him. Wonders while Aryan dies, telling to shut up and asking what kind of weird question is that. Out of nowhere Gunter gets somber, saying that there is no way of knowing if he loves someone, because he does not even understand what love is. Then declare, cutting through the air with their sword while insist that are misinterpreting it, is with Aryan, because if she dies he dies. That is the only reason he has to protect her. But if I could go on living without her, honestly would not care. Becomes uncomfortable, standing next to one of the doctors who wants to know how to. Why did you even do something like this? The next scene changes to Velvet being fed. He says that today's blood was inside, and that it is already waiting. Looking forward to the next meal, Audrey thinks for himself, who never imagined this would be one of the problems with whom they would have to deal. To have to feed this brat, spoiled every other day. Protagonist murmurs that he is a stranger, thought that high-ranking vampires, they did not even need blood, and now basic are a sack of blood. Walking for this type, explains that they need blood to fight or to recover. Velvet adds that in war the most important thing is the supply. That is why vampires, they always carry packets of blood with. Finds it odd, but Velvet explains that carrying a living human was too risky. You never know what they might do or when they might die, and even if you fed them, sometimes they just fell dead anyway. That is why they devised a new method, creating a kind of box of human food, a supply that could last a long time. Demands that I explain it, but refuses, saying that their relationship is not close enough to share it all. Gunter stretches his arm towards him, but this time Velvet says it is is part of the pride of the royal family. No matter how much he tortures him, he will not say so, he adds, are nothing more than a mirror of death, and a human drummer has heard talk about things like that and wants to know how to create truly a paradise of death. Start asking if they use a certain method, but someone stops him by reminding him that they also have the right to keep their secret, and who better not to forget the nature of their relationship. Velvet says it is fine, but that catches Gunter's attention. By then they are already going for his transplant. Number 32. This one should theoretically be the best so far. Freshest and of similar size. The one I had before. Opens it and looks a little blurry, but much clearer than before. All celebrate, and one of the doctors explains that the donor's name was Dora, 28-year-old man who had been a friend of Gunter's for 10 years, but it had resulted seriously wounded in those battles and died that morning. His dream was to become I thought I could help save the world, and somehow became part of it all. He asks Gunter if he will remember his name. Gunter simply replies that he may try, sounding like he is trying to play good, although he does not really care about any. With that, the carriage continues to move forward by remaining 414 kilometers to your destination, slower than they wanted, but at that pace would eventually succeed. The only problem is starving to death, bleeding from weakness. The only thing they have eaten these days were 1 or 2 pieces of beef jerky. She thinks it is ironic that Velvet, that brat, is eating better than they are, have gone too far without rest, and all he wants is to drink and eat a little and take a hot bath. At that time, one of the men in the group points to 2 people later. Meet a man who looks like a noble woman and a peasant woman, who say it has been a long time since the last time they saw other humans. Congratulate and ask them if they want to spend some time in their village. Does not sound at all, does it? Arian immediately questions why there is a village in the middle of and why are the clothes of these 2 so who they really are. The strange couple looks at each other and starts laughing. Clearly something is not right in their head. Sorry for not showing up before, and explain that after countless sacrifices and experiments found a way to survive against vampires. Now want to spread their solution to everyone. Audrey wants to know how that works. The man tells him to go to the village, and there he will explain everything. We're lucky to find them, but the camera continues to focus in their disturbing heart. Fortunately, Gunter immediately says they are talking. It is obviously a trick, and because would believe that except would only bring you more problems. Arian agrees and asks who wants to move forward naturally. All the soldiers say it is better to continue straight and not get involved with those strangers. However, the excuses and says that they are running out of supplies and will starve to death before arriving. Yes, that is a problem, but she is being sorry for believing in these people. Claim to know how to survive against vampires. Now the hungry members of the group begin to point out that the strangers clean clothes, well fed, and everyone is starving. Gunter tells them to be content with hunting rabbits on the road. They argue or how so many people are supposed to survive with a few rabbits here and there. Then suddenly one of them screams to attract everyone's attention. 1 kilometer away, someone was running towards them, a horde of hands, desperately screaming that it was not enough. Gunter says instantly that they have already wasted too much time, that it is time to run, but another man says that maybe. Gunter manages to escape, although not everyone will be left alive. The characteristic noble-looking type saying that they can address the people who are just near there. No one cares about vampires, just follow it. People who were against realize that they do not have many options, and so they end passing through a huge door that closes behind them. Physically, she almost seemed alive somehow. Gunter asks Arian if he saw that. She replies that yes, thing was not normal at all. The entrance of a cave. The man assures them that vampires do not enter there, and that even if they do not have the courage to go deeper, only need follow this path to a perfect location, full of food. Unknown, but with no other option. Continue. Inside, the villagers are standing around, clapping and shouting, well done, well done. Gunter finds it strange. Place is also full of tunnels and roads, highlighted, what makes it difficult to know exactly where they are headed. Feels almost like an ant colony. Sometime later, reach an area filled with water. There are openings in the ceiling that look like made to let in sunlight, and also some culture patches. Man then reveals banquet that they had prepared. Arian immediately thinks it is, and Gunter orders no one should eat because they do not know what everything is made of, but has already sat down and started eating. At least the man who offers the food. Also the test, ensuring that everything there takes place in this place. As you can see, they have sunlight, flowing water enters, grow food, and even manage to raise small animals. More workers are now in need, so it is glad that so many people have arrived. Arian notes that although the site is large, does not appear natural or human-made, and sees nothing special to maintain. Alienated from vampires, so why are not they being invaded? The man closes his eyes and says he understands their reaction, that makes sense themselves. They really do not know why vampires never get in. Simply ran away here once and found a space in which they could choose. Is cozy, almost as if the mother herself. Nature is embracing them. Then points to Gunter, saying it must be the angel of death, of which you have heard in rumors. Surely is on his way to kill the pure-blooded vampire. But what are the chances of success? Why risk their lives for that? Why not stay here and live in peace? Someone refuses but asks for supplies. One of the plague doctors at the front asks how man can be so sure that they can stay. say. Another doctor warns him not to say these things, but the man responds that the reason they follow to the paradise of death is to kill that vampire and that all others can live. And yet it is clear that it is a suicide mission. Barely are halfway along the line and more than 20 have already died. The soldier agrees, saying that this place seems perfect for a safe living. Another speaks from behind, saying he does not have much will to die and become just another piece of the paradise of death. This place really looks like a better option. Gunter murmura immediately that getting out of this is going to be difficult and asks Arian if he memorized the exit. She says she does remember, but that unfortunately won't it be easy to get the carriage out. He asks, how is that particular body doing? And she replies that some parts are already ready. Just then, look back and see blocks fitting together forming a wall. It is like a damn fortnight. Gunter realizes it the instant that the whole place is alive, as a living royal colony. Orders the man who guides to explain what this site really is, but the guy just keeps smiling with that same creepy face, considering the amount of power at stake. Here Gunter is sure that this place was built by vampires. Now the real question, this is probably a blood cell. More vampires would want from humans. That would explain it. No other vampire invades, because they know that they are probably. This is the territory of the strongest. That is his bet. Make it yours. A man says there is no need to fight again. Vampires outside can live here, join the crowd and be at peace. All they have to do is a small thing for the community. When asked what he answers, which is not difficult at all, just follow him and they will learn the secret to staying in this place. Of course the group is playing Gunter. It's the carriage, demanding that the bastard explain what this site really is. Velvet asks what he is talking about, who has no idea. Stumbled upon him by chance. Gunter warns him to stop playing dumb or he will kill him. Is then when Velvet says he is tired of hiding. Here he comes. Asks if Gunter remembers when he mentioned that vampires will be small lunch boxes to war, and this was the place where they manufactured those boxes of blood that vampires full for a while now are looking at this spider giant that looks more like a twisted ant. Everyone asks, the hell is that and why is there a vampire there? The leader tells them not to be afraid. The vampire playing there is called Lino. All this wonder place was built with parts of his body, protect and maintain it with all the love they can give him. Everything they need to do in return is to show a love benevolent to the queen. The soldiers shout at him immediately to stop joking. The target of vampires is representing humanity. Then why would he be taking care of them? The man calmly says it makes sense, and that is why they chose to live in a symbiotic way. Velvet explains more. She needs the blood of 6 different people, and by draining them all at once and mixing them in your system, produce what is essentially are their little food boxes. Soldiers look in disgust when the strange mass falls to the ground and demand to know what it is. The man explains that it is a blood orb. That thing can be stored for more than 2 months without rotting and consuming. Only one means that a vampire will not need blood for 3 months. Everyone in this place works hard for the queen to produce more of these. Tempers tremble, demanding to know why they are making food for vampires who will only use that energy to slaughter humans. Now everything makes sense. Why so many vampires outside the walls? Even with no humans to kill, they still had power. The man laughs and asks, and that he is not killing anyone by doing this. And even if I did, the only thing that matters is that he himself survives. Does not care how many die outside as long as he is safe. That is all that counts. The Greeks shout at him to wake up. This will not last forever. The goal, the end of vampires, is to erase to the entire community, and once it occurs he will also be killed. The leader admits that it makes sense, but asks how long it will take to die all outside anyway. 5 years, 10, maybe 100 in the end. He will already be dead too, but at least he will have lived peaceful life. Better to choose now. Stay here with everyone or spend every day begging for life out there. Back in the carriage, the group says this place is too dangerous. Better to be pursued by Dinesh to be trapped here. Right at that moment, hear screams as they turn. See men staggering covered in blood, saying it is a pity, needed more workers, but now they are all dead. And how the truth has been discovered. Obviously no one can go out. What happens if they bring more people here? Too late. This is the end for them, because as long as she is inside the belly of his queen are invincible. Suddenly the roof begins to close. Comments on what they are trying to do. Cover it all in yellow. And someone shouts to light a torch. Soldiers tremble when the first flame ignites, and the man reassures them by saying it is okay. But at that very moment, 5 or 6 others run after him. The old man closes his eyes in terror, then turns to ask what that noise is, just to see Gunter tearing everyone apart. Is laughing, cutting 3-4 in one fell swoop. A stomp crushes another, then hits one with such force. Core explodes against its allies. Enemies throw machetes, trying to take it by surprise, but Gunter moves forward, blocking everything by telling them that it will show them how to really throw yourself. Throws one back by cutting to 3-4 with a single shot. Says it is ridiculous that they move immortal when they die like idiots. At least now they won't need anyone else to work with, as I have not had a single one of them standing. The tribe leader mutters that this is a problem. Blood supply is much stronger than they expected, but it was not a lie. We're really invincible. The problem was that it seemed forget that they were inside the queen's body. At that moment the whole ground began to move slightly. Noted that from the beginning it was obvious that this whole place was alive. Gunter noticed that everything around him was closing in, constantly regenerating. Was not killing him but limiting his movement, and there seemed to be no way to break those walls. Could escape alone, of course, but I would not be able to take anyone else with him. One of the soldiers shouted for them to look. The entrance through which they had arrived was closing. Immediately Gunter ran forward, declaring that he would take everyone with him, already pressing the carriages towards the exit. Tried to gain speed. The walls changed, the roads were closed. Gunter pulling the carriage in full force, trying to break through first, followed by another one, but the last one remained trapped in the back. Passengers shouting. The others wondered what was going on while Gunter was just yelling at someone to show him. The rest of the way continued, advancing as he shouted that he was speeding. The place kept changing, the walls rearranging, but the entrances seemed to remain. Out of nowhere, a machete stuck in Gunter's leg. Figures appeared, asking if I really thought I could escape. All were part of the queen's body. Dozens sprang up around him smiling, singing that I was not going to leave there. Protagonist spit out they were a bunch of disgusting toys. Clearly none of them was really alive. The leader said that if 2 or 3 sheets were not enough, then how about dozens at a time? The steel rain sinking deep into the iron carriage. Inside, the others shouted desperately, asking if Gunter was still alive and wasn't even caught. One of the leaves, with teeth to protect your face, although his body wasd with steel. Enemies could not believe that he had survived. But at that moment, one of his allies was shattered. Gunter laughed, grunting that they would regret giving him so much ammunition, then advanced by provoking them, if they thought they could stop it, to come and try. Aryan warned that they should to have taken the path of the left, not the one on the right. He just dies. Abruptly, it was already very difficult to change now, that this would be the route they would take, or demanded to know why he was teasing everyone. Gunter was more focused in calculating how to shift your weight. His left side was the most damaged, worse than expected. His leg was shattered, could hardly move. But at times like those, you provoke your enemy even more. Is the only way to distract him, prevent them from on your wounds, because a wounded beast is the easiest prey. The creatures continued to attack with wave after wave of blades, who knows from where, shouting that his death meant victory for vampires had already abandoned humanity, so now it would serve those gentlemen. But in the middle of the speech they were split in two, Gunter grunting that they would go to hell. The real problem was that the road continued to narrow, increasingly tight, more difficult to pass. The carriages, one had to be abandoned, and the survivors advanced on foot. But then Gunter's wounded leg finally gave in, breaking under it, and the carriage almost overturned. Aryan, asking if he was okay, clenched his teeth, saying that if their movements were not so restricted, I would have already destroyed them all. But they had still just passed what seemed like a way out, just to crash into another wall. One of the soldiers warned that they were trapped with no place to go. Gunter asked if there was any way to destroy it, to open a path, but the man denied with his head it was impossible. The place was regenerating much faster than he could carve, and just as they were trapped in that chamber with only a small opening outside, the others were hesitant. In the end, they are also human, and they know that the first to try to survive will be shattered by Gunter. The girl hesitates, but the man tells her to relax, to risk their lives for others. The leader then, still saying there is no reason to worry, that is a way out right there. They have no food, they have no water. Time is on their side, shouts at them, to yours, by telling them that the offer is still in place. Anyone who wants to live can join them. Why throw your life for others when you can save yourself? Laughs like crazy, while everyone on the other side is confused. Hunter says he needs a new weapon, what they have to equip it and get out of this place fast. Aryan explains that they have a torso and a pair of legs, another pair of legs, and finally, another pair of legs. Gunter demands to know what the hell that means. Are they trying to turn it into a centipede? Stops, then admits that maybe it is not such a bad idea. He is disconcerted, while the inhabitants of the cave remain silent, waiting for something to happen. The bald redhead murmurs that they are resisting more than expected. The leader simply replies that it does not matter, that time is on their side. That is when all of a sudden Gunter's voice is in your ear, telling him to repeat that. The man is startled and recedes and staggers, demanding to know where the poison came from. Should not have been able to get through that wall. But there is Gunter, equipped with 8 legs, saying it is incredible. Time to tear them all apart and make them regret it. The guy does not understand how to. Went out so fast, but at that very instant, Gunter throws a direct kick to the chin. Even says that the most important thing in this world is his own life. Then, let us go back a little. The time he was being trained to move around with all those weird legs. Some even looked like rhinoceros wobbles. Ly frequently tells him to concentrate. He replies that he has no idea how weird it feels. Aryan explains that this set of legs was designed after studying insect. In theory, it can climb any mountain, adhere to any slippery surface. In a second, it is all escalating, understanding that with that speed and range, no one can approach him without mentioning that he can transform legs in something resembling a tail. Bang. Scorpion even launches an attack toward Aryan, joking that he would die right there, although only the rose slightly. She says that at least this way she has an advantage. The real problem, yet, it is how they will escape from this labyrinth. He shrugs his shoulders so that he can escape. All you have to do is to kill the queen in 2 hours. Admits it is an option, but reminds him place is a labyrinth. How Gunter will find it? Simply replies that a guide will be obtained, reliable to point the way, and with that it charges at full speed, grabbing the human leader by the throat, demanding to know where the queen is. Man refuses at first, until Gunter starts crushing his skull, then let go that the queen is on the right. The other villagers yell at him not to say anything, warning that if the queen queen does so, she will be killed. Obviously man cares more about staying alive. In the meantime there was no notice that they had left Velvet's carriage. Some people try to release him when he suddenly something happens at blinding speed. Wonders what kind of strange creature that was. Aims still running grunt at his hostage to continue speaking. To tell you the way out or your head will explode. Man quickly says to turn left. Survivors and break up with machetes to attack from behind, but Gunter the set aside with the tail and moves so fast that there is nothing they can do. Even as long as he is being called the leader, insists that Gunter will not be able to get through the final defense. The queen's mouth was right in front, but Gunter was thrown forward, and when his teeth closed, shot like a bullet, muttered, "This was interesting, but now the game is over." Was already inside the queen's chamber, while the others panicked, shouting that if she died they would lose the strength. At that moment the leader finally understood the truth. If this place fell, vampires outside would slaughter everyone. The problem was that they did not have the strength to stop. To this other Gunter, who already knew all his secrets, it was all his fault for miscalculating, for bringing these people here. At this rate they would all end up dead anyway. Look, Gunter, and burst into tears, begging for forgiveness, telling the boy that he had taken a chance. So much his life just to bring him to this. Gunter camera was confused while the man sobbed like a child, begging for his life, promising to serve humanity forever, swearing that all I wanted was to live. The others began to drop their machetes, falling to his knees as well, crying, begging for mercy, admitting that everyone makes bad decisions, but that the only thing they had always wanted was terrible. Gunter laughed, saying they were adorable, loved selfish people like them who acted purely by instinct, because he was the same and would well show some mercy. I would give everyone a second chance. If they ran at that moment and stabbed the queen's heart, first 10 to do so would be forgiven. The rest would die for an instant. They doubted the next moment, were already standing, shouting that they were fighting for humanity. All charged at the queen, and then she started to take off her mask, looking directly at them. Obviously he was not going to die easily without resistance, and before anyone could feel pity, showed us what made her this hero. The woman remembered a family holding a baby, crying. One hand landed on her balcony, someone telling him it was a pity the second wife had given birth to better children than her own. She looked to the side and apologized deeply to his mother. The mother abruptly asked him not to forget it. Everything they owned, had invested in that marriage with the duke, had sacrificed everything to hold on to the real blood and the power that came with her, even if it meant marry the princess who was his father. All the hard work he had done during his entire life, who will not forget it. The daughter just stood there answering that she understood, but the mother continued to push her face away, screaming that he did not understand nothing of the sacrifices that had been made, why it had to fail when they were so close to getting what they wanted. Why could not the girl simply give an air? Cross-eyed and broken, she whispered that she did not know either, that she had married to a man she did not even like, just please his mother. I thought of myself in that foreign land, giving my all, surrounded by strangers I had never met before. All he was asking for was that his mother, the only person I knew, would treat her like a daughter. In its place the mother that slapped him, saying that Colombians do not deserve affection, was a girl. The mother turned around to leave. When the daughter dies, if only he was born to fulfill his mother's ambitions and greed, if it was nothing more than a tool for to give birth to children and to ensure ties with this noble house. The mother turned and coldly confirmed, yes, I had finally understood. Now that I knew the truth, better become useful for something. The daughter boiled with hatred inside but was contained. Then he told his mother that if her sole purpose was to give birth to something like this, she was create something, not the noble blood his mother desired, but something that would put an end to the suffering of mankind. And we returned to the fight with Lionel, declaring that he cannot yet die, had not yet given birth to what was supposed to be put an end to humanity once and for all. My theory may be trying to create a new version of that woman buried with Julio. Honestly, is one of the few things that would make sense. And then out of nowhere, the whole forest explodes in an explosion, with her escaping, murmuring that it is still too early. Humans run after her, shouting that Gunter only promised give the first 10, so they will be the first. Pile on top of each other, trying to get ahead, when suddenly something cuts them all off. Is the Nash that he has found enough fists. All turn to flee while Gunter's soldiers comment that at least they managed to escape from that place. The protagonist appears, then charging Velvet by saying that found what he was looking for and that it is time to leave. The idiot continues, demanding that he be treated with respect. Gunter simply throws it away to the ground and orders to lock him up again as the princess, who is at the same time the human leader, orders one of his men not to block his path, just to get punched in his mouth and being sent to hell. Wobbles to curse back, but hear a sound behind it is Dinesh, saying that he still has some left, some fists to be collected. The leader stands up, apparently recognizing him and attempting to negotiate, tells Dinesh not to worry, that he will help you meet the quota, just tell him how many needs and this humble deer will bring them all together. All he wants is to be forgiven. Life, but Dutch is still getting closer. The leader asks what he is doing, only to be shattered, devoured alive, split in two until there is nothing left but hand. Gunter run at full speed, carrying the carriages on his 3 legs. Inside murmur, that will surely. He already knew from the beginning what was going on at that time. Production Nest, on the other hand, tells the fools that they deserve to die there, that at least now have bought more time for everyone. One of the men insists on killing again Lionel, but Gunter cuts to the chase, saying that they do not have time to face to 2 high-ranking demons at the same time. It would be impossible to, would be consumed completely. completely. And now that its nest has been destroyed, that corpse bat blood will not be able to do anything. Yet the Linel advances staggering through the forest, murmuring that he has not yet been born, who has not yet given birth to what she needs. Sometime later, one of the soldiers dies in the carriage, loses consciousness and falls to the ground. Immediately others shout at Gunter to stop and need to be helped by Mr. Eric. Says he has not slept in 3 days, which is too much. Is also hungry. Gunter taunts, saying the guy is a hero, but even he begins to feel his energy running out and decides to stop for an hour. Inside the carriage, Velvet murmurs that humans are a hero. Victory is so close. After all, have destroyed the vampire's energy source, and yet they are still hesitating. Only 102 seeds are missing, and all they need to do is keep moving forward. Others ignore it for the most part. Focuses on Gunter, feeding Arian, who clearly does not feel like it. He orders her to eat, but she insists, in which there are others who need it more. Gunter explodes furiously, demanding that he eat more than 5s. She collapses. She tries to protest, but he pushes the spoon in his mouth, telling him to shut up and eat. If he does not, he will kill her himself or comment. We're such a romantic couple. But the man next to him denies with his head, saying that he does not believe this is the case. Gunter looks around and points out that there are only 10 left, compared with those who left behind the walls as a relegation. Devastating, he asks. Arian is sure that this is part of the plan, will even work. The doubt extends through the group. No matter how much they do not want to give up, nor do they want to throw their lives in vain. Gunter hear this and say that no one will die in vain, because even if everyone else dies, their deaths will serve as fuel for him to stay alive. In other words, the plan will work as long as he is still standing. One of the men replies that if the plan depends on only of Gunter's pure will to survive, somehow that actually makes him feel more relieved. The carriage returns to the road with the protagonist advancing at full speed, the group hunting rabbits and eating what they find. Another day passes and Velvet announces that only 61 remain. Miles is an incredible feat for mortals. Your journey is almost at the end. It is just a pity that of course he shows up. Suddenly a figure in a hat crosses paths in front of them, and it is Julius. Look at Gunter and says he must be the angel of death. Everyone recognizes it instantly, demanding to know what he is doing there. Julius tells them to calm down. There is no need to be afraid. Has come in peace. Admits that he has failed to feel sympathy for their ambitions, but is doing his best to show compassion, and through that realized that the miracle of death is making the wrong decision, because the moment mortals win this war against human will want to kill him, and also to the so-called immortal paradise. Gunter demands to know what he is talking about, and Julius finally makes the offer that everyone was waiting for. It is not mortals who will grant Gunter his real wish, is Julius, so he asks him if he is willing to listen to him. Gunter frowns without understanding as he dies, screams it is a trap, but he sends her to shut up, saying that he will be the one to decide whether it is a trap or not. Orders Julius to release him, that if it is a joke it will kill him immediately. Julius responds with the obvious. Gunter is only still alive because he is needed as a weapon, but when the war is over, a weapon will no longer be necessary. Be the new king or the real hound, someone will want see him dead because he is a dangerous variable. Gunter remains in thoughtful silence, continues to insist that he be ignored by Julius. He is just talking, but Gunter ignores her and asks how Julius would survive. Says that before that he needs to talk to the boy. First, it is not clear whether the boy or his own. Gunter will die in this fight. Vampires are the closest thing that mortals have had to call death. That is why he wants to understand the will of all those present, just as he wants them to understand his. Gunter is completely lost, demanding to know what the hell this lunatic is talking about. Then Julius explains the plans. He wants to be the first in doing something that no mortal of cut life has ever achieved. Truly understand each other. Asians look at each other confused, but they know that the man in front of them is Julio. Yet he murmurs that no matter how much I look at it, this is an Aryan trap. Warns that they should attack first, when suddenly Julius mentions Gunter's parents. Like any other being in this world, he also had to be born from someone, but his father, looking at the sun, once said life was boring, then went outside and let himself be burned alive. Those were his last words before going out and dying in the sunlight, just as his mother had done. Gunter saw his father in ashes, and yet he felt nothing. That was the feeling of immortality. Every day, hundreds of creatures are born and die before your eyes. Leaves traces that become part of the earth, but unlike humans, vampires leave nothing behind, disappear completely. And the moment he realized that there was nothing the next day worth living, chose to sleep for eternity. Some humans walk through the catacombs, charging the king, who approaches a coffin and admits it is true. There really was a pure-blooded vampire sealed in that place, was something he had sought all his life, and finally God had given him the opportunity to regain his youth together with the world. But when the king opened his eyes again, his head had been cut off. Blood was spilled, but at that very instant disappeared. The king cried desperately, demanding to know why it could not be preserved. He did not want to. What? A life in which I had to keep that creature prisoner, living in fear. Man to his side explained that nothing about a pure-blood vampire remains once the king leaves his body. Said he already knew, but I wanted them to find a solution, because his youth eternal would disappear the moment that vampire vampire, died for real. Without it would be the end of the nation. He was the one who protected all mankind, the master of this world. One of his servants pulled down the hood and suggested King try to absorb pure parts of the devil. Exactly what I was already considering. Feed on his toes, his feet and everything else. King insisted that he did, all for the good of mankind. Maybe bit everything. Apparently yes. And even after devouring the vampire's flesh, nothing worked. No standing result in front of a mirror was achieved. What else did I have to do to become a perfect being of eternal life? The servant then he told him that there was only part of it left, the riskiest but the most effective, the source of power of the pure-blooded vampire, the heart. The king, his lips, thinking of the eternal source of infinite vitality, was the only thing that once completely destroyed could kill one of these creatures. And if the heart was not whole, vampires lost control of their blood. But what no one knew for sure was how much a heart could be damaged and still function, perhaps even cut in half, perhaps in thirds or even quarters. No one dared to take that risk, of course, because everyone wanted Julius to still alive. So the king cut a small piece to devour it, raised the plate, ate it and declared that it was the taste of the perfect vitality. It was terrible. That little piece of heart did not grant him eternal life, instead only fueled his hunger even more, began to consume more and more, bigger and bigger pieces, till at the end, had devoured half of the heart of July. The king shouted, demanding more and more, while the stranger, servant who had suggested everything, remained, observing in silence. The scene then changed to Julius opening his eyes. Someone whispered that he had finally woken up. The girl in front of him, he said that he had his head cut off during 900 years, should have left his memory hanging. During all that time, had been nothing more than a tool for humanity. Countless humans had fed on his blood, and all she wanted was begging for forgiveness in the name of each one of them. Said she was willing to die by his hands if it relieved his pain. All he asked was that he forgive humanity. Julius, however, only asked who she was. The soldier at his side stated that he was in the presence of the most benevolent and noble that never existed, the true Queen Isabella. But she interrupted him, saying he was wrong, that she was nothing more than another human sinner. Julius thought he already knew that humans had been drinking their blood and chewing his heart piece by piece, and yet he did not keep resentment and hatred for what they had done to him, because it had been a long time. Life had already lost its meaning. Outside, the Isabel cab explained that they had built this place, away from everyone, as long as I lived, would remain at his side, protecting him so that he will never again would fall into human hands. Julius, still confused, I thought why I was going so far for him. She just thought she was sure that if I had not done so, eventually someone else would have done it. Time passed and he told her that he had brought another book, seemed to be one of the most beloved among humans, and asked if he wanted me to read it. He told her to do what she wanted. It took longer. The books piled up and she began to age. One night she screamed in panic, saying that they had discovered the place, and that they would have to move to a safer place. He said it was fine, that if it was his wish he would follow her. In the Julius carriage, I could only observe his face marked by fear, traveled days and nights. In a moment the boy with a mustache told the queen that unfortunately they no longer had money or allies. She allowed it would like to pass the last days of his life with his family. She thanked him for everything he had done. Until then, later, Isabella told Julius to have spent his life serving someone so extraordinary as he had been wonderful, but sadly his time was running out and he would be left alone when she died. Julius, that for the first time in 100 years, I had had a dream, and that dream grew up together while their children became adults. In the end they were buried side by side as her children surrounded her grave. Isabella replied that perhaps dreams were impossible by nature. It was then that Julius found its purpose in life, wished that the day Isabella exhaled his last breath was the day he put an end to his own immortality, but that dream was never fulfilled. We're still in the cabin when Julius told him it fit a year, that was the limit before his death. Isabella only asked if he would be by her side when she left. He said yes. Who would remain with her in the coffin where she would be buried? Isabella then asked if that was her wish, to bury them in a place where no one could ever find them. He accepted, as it was his wish. That night Julius dreamed again. In his dream was buried deep in the cold earth, inability to breathe, yet he did not feel suffocated or uncomfortable, because Isabella was by his side. I could feel his flesh decomposing, insects feeding on their bodies, yet for the first time he felt at peace, and while his own body unwrapped was slowly absorbed by the earth, began to awaken of sleep. But when turned to one side, someone dies, bringing words from the King of Kings. Humans are idiots because they believe that the ridiculous sense of justice to which they cling will never betray them. The man had stuck a sword in Isabella, immediately pulled her out and threw her into the trash, saying that the former princess was worthless. His task was to hunt the pure-blooded vampire, advanced towards Julius, that simply fulminated with his eyes and smashed them all in one fell swoop. Approached Isabella, telling him that his spirit, fermented, was too dangerous. I knew this was not the way she wished to die, could save her from death, turning her into a high-ranking vampire. That that was his wish, bent down to bite her, promising to win eternal life by drinking mortal blood. But she asked him to stop. Over time, had learned that humans no longer became wise with age, only more greedy, begged for forgiveness but said that, intensively, I wanted to leave everything behind and let fate take its course. Looking at his hand, confessed that his only regret was not to have achieved one thing before he died, something I had never been able to see before. Julius told him to only ask if he wanted to, that all those who had done that to him would die, or that the entire royal family was destroyed. He would reality, but Isabella said that what she wished to see one day was a world in which no human being to suffer from the greed of another. Julius then gave him his word. Someday the world she desired would be created. She then placed her hand on his face and told him that he was still his beloved melancholy god. And with that, Isabella died. We return to the present with Julius, saying that after his death it took years and years to investigating ways to create a world without greed. It was then that he discovered that mortals had a unique feature, were cornered creatures who naturally worked together to survive. The problem was that selfishness and greed were always intertwined with those intentions. If there was any species on this planet born to torture each other in the name of survival, were the mortals. Was then when came to the conclusion that in order for a world without suffering, humanity itself could no longer exist because they were the real cause of greed and gave. Like this video that helps Maso to continue bringing more juicy content for its viewers. Activate the naughty little bell and I am off.